Right near the beach.
Right near the beach, yeah. Hey everyone, we are live. Welcome to another Basement Radio Arcade podcast. BRAP, as we're known out here in the Twitters and the gaming streets. We have an exciting show for you guys this evening. We have a returning guest, somebody who we enjoy having on when he can make it on and love his insight into the gaming industry. We have David Jaffe with us. David, what is going on? Thank you for coming back to BRAP, man. It's been quite some time.
It's good to be here. How are you guys doing? Are you surviving the corona?
Yeah, so far.
I mean, so far, so good, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
I tell you what, and not that that I never wash my hands, but I'm definitely washing my hands like on a like everything. If I go out anywhere, if I touch anything, I'm almost immediately washing my hands. It's gotten so bad that like my knuckles have like started cracking a little bit. It's crazy.
I'm exactly the same. I'm absolutely the same. It is fucking nuts, man. It is surreal. Don't you find it's just a very surreal way of living these days? I mean, I don't know where you guys are located. Here in San Diego, we are all pretty much sequestered and barely leaving the house. I mean, that's kind of, and they're saying this could last for many months. It's every now and then during the day it'll hit me and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is like living in a movie.
Yeah, you know what? It's crazy, man.
And Jaffe, I just came off playing Days Gone.
Okay.
So I'm like zombie apocalypse games, this happening, I'm like, okay. like my mind's kind of racing here a little bit. Like I'm like, well, what if this vaccine to develop makes everyone into zombies? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but after playing these games, I'm just kind of that's where my mind's kind of heading, and I'm saying these things to my wife, and I don't think that's helping because I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, I've seen what it's like. Days Gone, when people are scavenging for toilet paper and whatnot, stuff goes south quick.
It does. I mean, I don't think we'll have the toilet paper problem for all that much longer. I mean, we were talking before we went live that bidets cost nothing. They cost $30-$40 off Amazon. If you don't have a bidet, even without the corona, you're a fucking heathen. Because when you really are, when you think about the aspect of wiping your buttocks and you're basically just get some paper up there and you think you're walking around feeling spring fresh, it's disgusting. Until you haven't lived until you've shot a stream of water up your butthole, and then you're like, it's true. And then you're like, oh, this is living. This is the way to feel clean after a poop. So I think people need one anyway. But I think the real thing is, yeah, I mean, somebody Bizzotti in the chat is saying he doesn't know how he's going to live like this for months. I mean, that, joking aside, that really is the weirdest part, is when it really hits you that, even Trump, is saying this July could go to August, assuming people actually follow the instructions. However, I think if we end up having what happened in Italy happen here, those kids in spring break in Florida that everybody's seeing on the news today, they're going to get a wake up call real fucking quick. I mean, it's crazy out there. So I'm glad to have video games to talk about to distract me from it for a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually been a very welcome distraction for me. I've been doing some binge watching on Netflix, but definitely video games have kind of been kind of my escape from all this, because like you said, like when you hear that this thing might not be, we might not see the light of the tunnel here till like June or August. I'm like, shit, that's a long time. Like, yeah, to practice social distancing, right? And
that's exactly right.
To be scared to go to, the supermarket. I mean, I think the scariest thing for me about this pandemic, and we can't say the actual name of the virus because YouTube will, demonetize and all that other good stuff. But
you can't say the name of the virus, really?
No, you can't. You can't put in your title. YouTube will demonetize you.
Why?
I had no idea.
They say they're afraid of fear
profiting off of epidemic.
Can you use the? Oh, that's terrible. That's so dumb. Can you use the Donald Trump racist version of the name of the virus?
I mean, you could. I mean, you probably could.
I wouldn't. I'm just saying, hey, if you really want to make your ducats, there you go. Yeah. There's another way to get around it. Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Right.
Found that very interesting. He started branding it.
Yeah, he branded. I mean, like, come on, like, really, that's like the last thing that we need him to do in this country. Like, lead the fucking country. Get us through this pandemic. but don't be an ass about it.
Well, everybody knows why he's doing it. He's distracting, and he's trying to take the focus off the fact that a couple of days ago he was like, "This is no big deal." So it's like, it's a It's a calculated distraction. It's annoying. It's obnoxious, but hopefully this time a lot of people won't take the bait and just go, "Okay, fine, Trump."
Yeah. You know what, Jaffe? I would love to actually get you back on another podcast to talk about this upcoming election.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's I did a kind of a rant about this last week, a little bit about his leadership because of through the whole pandemic, but I don't want to get into now because it's just it's a whole other topic conversation. But yeah, just interesting times. I mean, you see the impact in the gaming industry. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Square Enix, they put out an update on the Final Fantasy VII remake. Now, they're still saying the game will release on April 10th, but some people may not be able to get a copy or copies of the game because they might not have enough. And again, that goes back to this pandemic and the impact that it's had. I mean, it's a very interesting time, not having GDC this year. I was supposed to go to E3, myself and Eric Jackson and B Money and Gaming Forte. We all had already booked our tickets to go to E3, and that's not happening now. So, and then we're supposed to have a console launch at the end of the year. So, yeah, times are interesting. But anyhow, on that note, guys, we do have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 reveal, which happened, which almost kind of put me to sleep because it was very, very, very technical. And there was some interesting feedback reaction to the review of the PlayStation 5. And then also, we're going to talk about crunch and the video gaming industry. There was a recent article. I don't know if you read the article, Jaffe, by Jason Schreier, Kotaku.
I did. This is the one he put out a couple of days ago about people from Naughty Dog writing him and saying shit's really bad here. Yes.
So definitely want to talk about that because that's kind of interesting. That's an interesting topic. But before we get to that topic, I do want to get to the Sony PlayStation reveal. I did watch it for the hour. Actually, Forte and I did a live stream. I think Forte was falling asleep at some point during that stream.
I fell asleep twice and stopped paying attention.
Yeah, but it was very technical, and I'll go over the specs real quick. The PlayStation 5 will have a CPU, Zen 2 8-core CPU at 3.5 gigahertz. We found out about the teraflops. Everybody wanted to know about that. 10.28 teraflops, 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM. Storage, 125 gigabyte SSD, expandable storage, NVMe SSD slot, which is actually different from what I believe the Series X is doing with the. I believe they're doing the Seagate cards or whatever it is. I forget what they remind me of the storage cards we used to have back in the days. If you guys remember
Seagate expandable drives.
Thank you, sir. But it's interesting. Sony's taking a different route. They're going to have expandable storage for an NVMe SSD slot, but Sony did say that. Don't start buying those now. They aren't any compatible ones for the PlayStation 5 out just yet. So very tech heavy, I guess, if you want to call the presentation. But I found the feedback by some of the people in the community to be very interesting. Some people said that this was a very poor marketing job by Sony, that Sony's in trouble.
I wonder who said that.
Gaming Forte. that things are changing at Sony. This isn't the same Sony that we knew. My initial feedback or reaction to the event was, this was supposed to, my understanding is they were supposed to do this at GDC, but then, the Corona hit and that didn't happen. And I believe, according to Richard Ledbetter from Digital Foundry, he was actually supposed to meet with Mark Cerny in person. But that did not happen as well because of the virus or the pandemic. So this is what we get. We got a YouTube stream of the specs. So I'm not in that camp that thinks that this is poor marketing. I just look at it as, hey, they came out and they said it was just going to be a deep dive into system architecture, and that's what they give us. And those are just my thoughts on it. Nothing more, nothing less. But I do want to get to the panel. Jaffe, did you watch the stream? Did you? I know we talked a little bit on DM and.
Yeah, I mean, I scrubbed through it later in the day. I woke up and then people were like, oh, they were complaining about it on Twitter. It was just ending. And I said, okay, I'll watch it later. And I pulled it up about 3 hours ago and I scrubbed through it and I could handle about collectively 45 seconds. And I'm like, okay, I get the gist of what this is.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of the feedback of people that are saying, this is a different Sony, or this is a poor marketing job, or a poor job of the first reveal of the PlayStation 5?
I haven't seen a lot of it. Like, I'm sure there's I'm not going to judge the way they've expressed it. I hear a lot of people are being total dicks. I'm not supporting that, but do I think that this was a really bad move from a PR standpoint? Yeah, absolutely. It was stupid. If Sony, for whatever reason, felt the need to share the specs of the PS5, and it was originally supposed to be GDC, if nothing else, they could have done a much better job at a PR level, making it clear, hey fellas, we know you're excited. News is coming that's gamer focused. This is going to be a very technical talk, and keep that in mind. And so when it went down, people would have been like, well, yeah, that's what they said. And there's some cool tech specs and that's cool. But our sort of, preview Christmas morning is coming, but they made that clear. But since they didn't make that clear, it does feel very tone deaf. Like they're not really reading the audience that well. And I don't think it's going to matter at the end of the day. I think Microsoft was really smart to come out right after it and say, hey, we're launching Thanksgiving weekend, and kind of use that as a counterpunch. It won't make a real difference. I think hardcore fans, it's not like if in a month and a half Sony releases a video, because they're not going to be able to do it live, of this is PS5, look at these amazing games. You guys know all will be forgiven within 5 fucking minutes. But in terms of right now, it didn't make a lot of sense. Like, it makes you go, why did they? They're all working from home and shit. Maybe they couldn't get their stuff together. And Cerny, who rules the roost over there, understandably, real important guy over there, maybe he's like, look, I want to give my tech talk. And they're like, fuck it, let him do it. I really don't know in terms of why but it does seem to be a really bad PR move. But it doesn't take anything away from the potential success of PS5. It just seems pretty silly in terms of why would they do it without setting it up so fans wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great perspective insight. I mean, I think, I've kind of been, Forte and I had a little debate live on the stream about this, and Forte, I think, was kind of driving home that point.
Thank you for saying that, because I was about to say, if you say Jaffe's right and don't say that I've been saying that the whole time, we just gonna fight, bro.
It's all in the delivery, sir.
Yes, thank you, Jaffe.
The delivery was the same exact delivery, sir.
No. Let me chime in by saying that I did not hear Forte say it, but I'm pretty clear that his delivery was not as good as Jaffe. So I'm sorry.
I'm not saying it was just as good, but I'm just saying that is exactly what I kept telling the Rick. He's like, "You right, Forte, you right," but I still think that it was meant to be this way.
Well, I mean,
it was meant to be a certain way, but just because
it sure was meant to be
way
another
doesn't
way,
mean that the gamers should accept that if they want something else. So, like, if your community wants more information, and you're just like, yeah, but we're going to do it this way, like you're kind of being tone deaf to what the overall PlayStation community is looking for. They want more information. They want to see the console. They want to see the controller. They want to see the new features of it. Around this time, last time in 2013, but in February, they did the whole Cerny talk thing in a 2-hour stream reveal, and he spoke for like 15-20 minutes, but that's 2 hours of other developers going up on stage and talking up the console, showing footage of things. Like, that's a whole different look than what we got. Yeah, they're not really. They look at it like, well, we weren't trying to market the PS5 right now. We were just doing the GDC thing that we planned on doing. But that may have been what you were trying to do, but the way it came off was a whole different story. And so you can't tell people you shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't feel like you're not getting information on the PS5. You shouldn't feel like you don't know what's in store with it and what games are going to be available. I mean, but that's the reality that people have. That's their feeling about it. I'm not going to tell people not to feel that way, you know?
I'm not going to tell people not to feel that way either, but if you know anything about Sony, if you're a fan of Sony, anytime you hear Mark Cerny, you already know what you're getting into. When they posted it, they said deep dive in the architecture of PS5 with Mark Cerny. So if once you hear that and understand what you're getting into, I don't understand why people thought they was going to see games. I don't understand why they thought they were going to see the controller.
Well, because the average person, what you just said sounds like Latin to most people. Deep dive into the architecture of the PS5 with Mark Cerny. For 90% of people who just consider themselves PlayStation video game fans, they don't know what the fuck that means. They just hear PlayStation 5 news and there's going to be a stream. But what's architecture? What's teraflop? Nobody knows what the fuck that shit means. And so I do think people can be forgiven for requesting maybe next time Sony do a little bit better job going, hey guys, this is what this is. You're not this. Let's get ahead of this. Again, it's not going to matter. It's not like Sony. It's not like Sony came out and said the box is going to cost $699. That's real data that will push people away. This is just like, okay, I guess we have to wait a little longer. But you know how it is. Like I said, all will be forgiven, assuming when they actually come around and show games. That's what people care about.
Yeah.
So my biggest problem that I had with the stream was mostly what you just said. It was more of this was set up to be meant to be illustrated in one way, and they should have scrapped that way once GDC got canceled. It should have been more of I think we're just kind of spoiled to how Microsoft has been talking about their system and the ways that they've been giving that information out over the course of the last 5 to 6 months. This would have been something, once GDC got canceled, should have been something that a blog post would have been a perfect way to explain this, and then let other people that people want to go look at their channels to go see the actual breakdown of what they're doing with all the different systems like the SSD and what they're doing with their 3D spatial audio. That's stuff that I felt like could have been explained completely separate outside of what they're doing with this. And when and the biggest thing, they promoted it. If they would have just said, hey, here's the specs, here's what we're doing with our system, here's all the information around our system. If you want to get a more deeper dive into what this all means, here's a video of Mark Cerny talking about that on a one-on-one basis with everybody that wants to know more about it. But once you promote it as a stream, that's what people are tuning in. You're not just tuning into developers and people that want to talk and see about the system. You're talking about 666,000 people tuned in for that stream. Trust me, at least 90% didn't care about what they were talking about on that during that reveal.
I think all of that's true. My question is, I never read the blog post. Are you absolutely certain that the blog post didn't make it crystal clear? Like, hey guys, this is not revealing PlayStation 5. This is about.
They just used the word deep dive. They said we're doing a deep dive with the PlayStation 5. They didn't really say what the deep dive was going to be. They just
okay. Yeah, they should know better than that. That's,
Yeah, I think the exact tweet was tomorrow, Mark, senior, I forget Mark Cerny's title, senior system architect or whatever, Mark Cerny will be doing a deep dive into the PlayStation 5's system architecture. And that was it.
But see, but to me, like right there, again, like what B was saying, like I'm not saying that you're wrong for it, because I think there's definitely layers and ways that you can handle that. But again, I kind of they say deep dive of the system architecture, but people took that to say, well, I hope that we get to see this game and get to see this and get to see this running and that running. And I'm like, they didn't say any of that.
Well, that's the thing. Most people, I agree with you on that, but we also know what's going to be the number one thing in this community that's going to happen when people hear Sony's going to be talking about something, unless they're super elaborate and exactly what they're going to be talking about. We lambaste Microsoft for their marketing and the things that they did wrong throughout the generation for doing exactly things like this. You know, people don't tune in to see, they don't tune in for an hour to see about system archetype and stuff like that. That's why when you go to E3, you don't want that to be the conversation. You want the games to be the conversation. But now that that's not the situation, they should have changed their approach to how they wanted to introduce this concept to people. Once they changed, once GDC was canceled, this press conference should have been canceled. That's the way that I look at it, and they could have gave the same information in a different way. And we have proof from a company that did it the day before that did it better. Microsoft didn't come out and talk about the architect of their system. They left it to people who tune into those channels for that. People go to Digital Foundry to hear about specs and about what the architect is. People go to Austin Evans' channel to hear about specs and about all that type of stuff. And then Microsoft just put a blog post up, said, here's the numbers. This is what we're doing. And we got other people that can assimilate this conversation way better than we can. Then you go check those channels out to do it. Now I understand Mark Cerny people want to hear what he has to say, because when he talks, you know he knows exactly what's going on with the system. It just could have been implemented a different way than they actually did it, by talking about hard drives for 25 minutes. Who cares about the hard drive at that point? For 25 minutes. That was the biggest letdown to me. It was nothing wrong with the information given. It was just that the information felt tone deaf to the people that were watching it. That's why 666,000 people tuned in. Next thing you know, it was down to 600,000 people, because 60,000 people checked out instantly. But you know, it's not going to matter. Because overall, Sony and Microsoft are both going to be fine. The system's going to be fine. This is just something that needs to be addressed going forward.
I think if you want to look at anything that potentially really matters long term, is why was this, because one of the things you ask at the beginning is what's going on over at Sony. And I still have a number of friends over at Sony and stuff. And the real question is, how are they doing with all the transitions? I mean, look, when, I don't know, man, I have a lot of faith that Scott Rhodey is still over there, and Scott Rhodey is running the show when it comes to American video game development. But I was really surprised to hear Shannon Studd still left Santa Monica. I was really surprised to hear Alan Becker was, quote, retired after 30 years at Sony with very little fanfare, very little notice, given all that he's contributed. There's definitely a lot of questions about how fast this new group of executives are going to be able to deliver what people are expecting in terms of quality. I have a lot of faith in Herman Holst. I don't know Jim Ryan that well, but I do think that's the bigger question is this PR miscalculation, which really end of the day is negligible. Nobody's going to care in the long run, but how much of that is a reflection of maybe a bigger problem, which is Sony's trying to figure out how to get this shit ready to launch, and maybe they're just scrambling.
That's actually, and I think that's where some of the concern, at least from some people that I've talked to, that's some of the concern, Jaffe, that there's this new leadership in there, and that and some people are looking at this maybe mishap or misstep in PR as kind of that chink in the armor, like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't good. This isn't the old Sony. The old Sony leadership wouldn't do this, and people are taking this and saying kind of like, maybe things are looking a little. Hate to use the word spooky, but that's kind of some of the feedback that I've been hearing for some people. I've even heard some people say, "Oh, this looks like Microsoft 2013," but I wouldn't even go that far and say that. But the new leadership thing is going to be interesting, and is that, Jaffe? Let me ask you, is that why we haven't heard as much about the PlayStation 5? Because maybe behind the scenes they're trying to figure out how to market this thing.
I don't know. I mean, and if I knew, I wouldn't feel sharing. But what I can say is that the one thing that Sony has laid out in public for everyone to see is they've had a huge number of executive shuffles. They have retired and or people have left that have been key factors in why Sony has been really successful over the years. It doesn't mean the people they've replaced them with aren't also important people. The guy running Sony Japan is made one of the best games out of Sony Japan, which is Astrobot in the last 10 years. Herman Holst ran Gorilla. It's not like they pulled people in from fucking Kellogg's who don't know video games, but it's just how much of it is growing pains, how much of it is shit. We're trying to do this big executive shuffle and we're trying to launch a console, or how much of it is reflective of a company that really is struggling to, figure out how to run the ship with all this new executive, these executive people. There's no way for us to know outside looking in. You can create all kinds of scenarios. You can sit around and speculate easily that, PR should have said, hey, Mark, this is not the right time to be doing this speech in this way. And you can speculate that Mark Cerny put his foot down, and maybe there used to be somebody in the past that could override Mark Cerny. But now, because no one knows which way is up because of all the changes, we got the video or the stream that came out today. Not that it was that bad, but it was definitely confusing and disappointing for Sony fans. Is any of that true? I don't fucking know. But we don't know, and it's certainly possible. But it's also possible that they're like, look, motherfucker, we're trying to launch a console. There's a pandemic, if you haven't noticed. And, we had this speech ready. We'll get to you when we get to you. It's not like you're not going to buy our system if we come out with an amazing roll of video games in 3 or 4 months that blow your mind. So we know you're eager, but settle the fuck down. The only problem with that, the only question with that is Microsoft is doing a really good job directly making video game fans happy right now. And how much of that feel good vibe from Microsoft is really going to translate into sales. I don't know if it ever translates into sales, but certainly Microsoft's doing a better job at winning the hearts and minds of gamer war in the last 6 months. You have to admit that.
I would agree with that. Absolutely. Eric, were you going to say something, man?
No, I'm just agreeing with David. And, I think the other day after they Microsoft revealed their specs and everything, we all kind of said the same thing, collectively, like they're being aggressive, that they're actually concise in their message. And that's a hell of a turnaround from where they were at the start of the generation. And you have to give them props in that. And that's also that kind of, I think, shows the competitive nature, and it shows, wanting to get that back. But at the same time, they're in that position where they kind of have to do that. You have to, that's not to say I'm giving Sony the pass on what they're doing. They could be in a position where they're about to fall on their face. We don't know that. But yeah, it's definitely all props on Microsoft for getting their messaging right, and hitting it in a very tactical way.
Yeah, Microsoft's done a fantastic job. And like you said, E, we all talked about this in TM. I mean, the way they did the Series X reveal at the Game Awards, and then no one knew that was going to happen. That caught everyone by surprise. I didn't even think Jeff Keighley knew that announcement was going to happen with that show. And with, I almost said Richard Ledbetter, but Digital Foundry and Richard Ledbetter's video and breaking down the Series X and talking about them, flying out the folks from Digital Foundry to Redmond and getting them a real hands-on with the Xbox Series X. I believe they showed them, was it Gears 5 that was running on the Series X?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, and they showed
it was Gears 5.
It was outperforming a 2080 Ti slow-mo.
It was not doing that, but it was looking pretty good.
That narrative's gonna start slow-mo. Once people saw, I already got the DMs. People always busting my chops because I game on PC, but I already got those DMs slow-mo. They're like, oh, it's benchmarking 2080. I'm like, yeah, we'll see.
They said it looked. Let me not start. Let me
go ahead, Slomo. Go ahead, man.
They said it looked like it was performing at the level of a 2080 Ti. They didn't actually break down what the whole Digital Foundry's, process and comparing the two. But I mean, look, they said they were using features that weren't in the PC version, as well as going a little bit further than they went with the PC version as well. So of course, like with stuff like that, yeah, you're definitely doing a little bit more than what the PC was doing. But is it outperforming a 2080 Ti? I mean, not really. So it's just like, I don't know. These guys have they when you think teraflops and compute units is the only determination for performance, of course you're going to be doing this kind of talk. So
yeah, I actually like what that developer tweeted out. I forget who it was, Slomo. You DM'd it, where he kind of addressed the whole teraflop issue.
Yeah, what is that guy's name?
I don't remember. I know he said he had worked.
Was it basically that developers don't ever use the term teraflop and nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
That's pretty much right on the money.
And that's pretty much why I've gotten so tired of, I used to go on a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I would just start getting so frustrating because people will be saying teraflop and this. I'm just like, guys, shut up. I mean, nobody talks like that. Nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about. And ultimately, I get real cranky clearly when it comes to this whole subject. It's just like, guys, they're all going to be great. They're all going to be top of the line for a little bit, and then they won't. It all comes down to the games. It all comes down to sort of certain quality of life things, whether you're talking about load times or whether you're talking about the controller. But it just feels like such a waste of life to sit here and debate. Well, you see, the Xbox Series 1X has 0.3 X more little pieces of silicone there under the hood. God, what the fuck are you talking about? It's literally like, I've said this before, it's literally like Eddie Murphy in Boomerang when he's in bed with that beautiful woman and he looks down at her toes and she's got a bunion on her toe and he kicks her out of the bed. It's like, Jesus Christ, both these things would be great. It comes down to who's making the best games for them. I mean, I hate to piss on the parade. I know some people are into this shit. You know, the thing I thought that was the most interesting out of anything Cerny said, and I don't know if it'll make a difference or not, but I think a lot of PlayStation fans were fully expecting full backwards compatibility. Now, I don't know how realistic that is, and Sony may have been like, look, you want full backwards compatibility? It's called PlayStation Now, motherfucker. I don't know. But I do think that that's the one piece of data that came out today that actually will affect how many, I don't know, but will affect some gamers and make them go, oh, I was hoping for something more that's actually noticed.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I was actually a little disappointed when I saw it was just backwards compatible to PS4, and then they said at launch only the top 100 games. Because me personally, like when I said I was definitely getting PS5 day one, part of that, usually I'm not a first day one adopter because I'm usually still playing games on my last gen console. Them saying it's going to be backwards compatible, I'm like, well, great, because I know for certain they're going to be games I'm still playing on the PS4 when it comes out. I'll be able to play those games. It's just basically just doing an upgrade to a better piece of hardware, but still being able to play the games that I already own. But then when it's to the top 100 games, I'm like, well, I know for a fact some of the games that I need to finish playing are not top 100. And then what's top 100? Is it top 100 in sales or top 100 in Metacritic score? Like, what's your criteria for top 100?
Yeah. What's the criteria?
Because at this point, it's like, I don't know if my games are going to be available at launch. And then if they're not, then I'm like, I might just wait a bit. I don't know. Like, I'm definitely getting it, but then it's like, I might wait till January when like that patch comes out or something.
Yeah, because it could be that thing too. Like, it's like, yeah, it's for the top 100, and then as time goes on, we'll roll out the next 100. Because I know, like, initially when Microsoft started their BC program, it was kind of like that. Like, they had their first few hits, and then it kept growing from there. Right, it grew fast. It grew rapidly. So yeah, that's all stuff they got to clear up. You know.
Well, every day, I would say that Xbox is every day the pressure mounts on Sony that when they show these games, they're going to have to be amazing. Because even the stuff you're talking about now, Microsoft is like, oh, we got you covered. Yeah. You want to go ahead and buy your game today? Go ahead and buy it. Don't worry. It'll automatically work, and it'll be upgraded when you buy your new Xbox. Could be 3 years, 4 years down the line. I mean, they've thought of everything. And everything they've thought of that Sony hasn't, it just puts more pressure that when you see those games, you better love those games that they show you because, you know, Xbox is, that's the value of failure, fellas. You get a bloody nose and you're like, shit, I don't like the way that feels. Let me learn from my mistakes. And so far, I mean, we haven't seen their games yet, but everything else they've shown so far this generation has been pretty impressive lesson in terms of turning a ship around that's just smashed into an iceberg.
Absolutely, that's a great point. I mean, and with those, with what Microsoft's doing, I think even some of the older games are getting like a patch, right? Like if you play some of the backwards compatible games on the Series X, if I'm not mistaken, I think they get enhanced, right? Like automatically.
You get a new game if you go out and buy the new Halo and you buy it for your Xbox One X, and you buy it this Christmas, whatever they're calling it, the new Halo. And then 2 years from now, you buy an Xbox Series X. That's the one failure is their naming is horrific. But if you in 2 years buy the new Xbox, you're automatically going to own without having to buy the new version of Halo that works for your Xbox Series X. But I can pretty much guarantee you, I could be wrong about this, but I could pretty much guarantee you if I go out and buy Last of Us Part 2 in April, and then come December 5th, I buy a PlayStation 5 and I want the upgraded. I don't imagine, at least history doesn't suggest that Sony's going to just give me that for free.
Yeah, I would imagine they would probably charge us another $60 for the enhanced version. I mean, they sort of did that with The Last of Us when they did the PlayStation 4 port from the PlayStation 3. Yeah, so, but I agree with you, Jeff. Like Microsoft, in terms of like enhancing older games and backwards compatibility, they're definitely more ahead of the game than Sony is. And I think that's definitely an area of improvement for Sony, at least, in terms of backwards compatibility, or maybe even enhancing older titles if they make it their way to the PlayStation 5. Someone in the live chat mentioned that it was the top 100 games tested or something, but that they're going to add, they're going to be adding additional games as they kind of, test more games out.
This is based on playtime. I mean,
yes, it is based on playtime.
This is kind of a flawed way of going about it.
Is it really backwards compatibility at this point? I mean, technically it is, but it's like people talking about how Xbox did this throughout the generation, but that was with 360 and Xbox original games. We're talking about PS4 games. You can't even make your system backwards compatible to all your PS4 games. I mean, that's something that Microsoft, I mean, I guess that's what Microsoft was forward thinking, saying we're going to do that. But this also just tells me one other thing, that a lot of this stuff where Sony has been very reactionary, Microsoft has basically said all our stuff is going to be forward compatibility going forward. Sony, remember, there was a while that people didn't know if it was going to be backwards compatible. So is this basically Sony's way of just saying we're implementing this stuff on a game by game basis, because we weren't going to do this at first, but we're doing it because the competition is kind of forcing us to do it? It's like I said, at a certain point, it's like, why are we? Some of this stuff just didn't need to be talked about until you 100% knew this is what it's going to be. There should have been a list available for you to go to their PlayStation website to say, these are all the games that's going to be available day one through backwards compatibility. Not this haphazard, we don't know, come check with us later. It's the same thing with the SSD, with the expandable storage. It's like a bunch of I don't know. We don't know if you can go out and buy stuff. Stay tuned for more information on that. It was like very reactionary to everything that's been going on. And I mean, it's not to say that they're going to struggle because of it, because it's PlayStation. They have the biggest market share when it comes to gaming, but it's just troublesome to think that with a new regime bringing in what the next generation is going to be, that they're basically scatterbrained when it comes to the conversation that they're having with their gamers. And I'm just not used to hearing that from a Sony that we've known for the last 10 years.
Interesting point, Forte. Interesting point. Some of the live chat says, from what I understand, backwards compatibility is extremely tough to build into architecture.
That's why I say it must not have been there in the beginning.
Yeah.
They putting it in there on the back end.
Yeah.
Reactionary, which is nothing wrong with it, but don't talk about something unless you got it 100% implemented into your system. It's like, now how if they got to roll this back and say, man, we couldn't get this to work. Now you out there on the hook saying that we got backwards compatibility for the top 100 games, and then when it comes in launch, you only got 30 games. Yeah, I don't know, man. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll find out more. That's for sure. I mean, this is very interesting. Forte, you bring up some interesting points. But so Forte, do you think are you predicting doom and gloom here? You sound a little gloomy about.
No,
okay.
because I'm still buying the system day one. That's still, I mean, dude, this is the thing. This stream didn't convince me one way or another that I'm getting a PlayStation day one. I mean, I know I want to play God of War when it releases. I want to play the new Spider-Man because I haven't even beat the last one. But God of War, I definitely want to play the next one of that. So I'm gonna get one because they pretty much sold me on the system back in 2017 when the last one came out. So that's not the problem. It's about who are we talking to when it comes to your first major reveal. Not even, I mean, of the system. It may not have been what they intended it to be. They probably didn't intend it to be this, everybody to tune in for a spec talk or a quote unquote Cerny talk is basically what it turned into. But it was just about they had an opportunity to fix this. They could have said, hey, let's scrap this. We're going to have a big reveal. We're going to talk about specs, but we're going to do it in a different way because our audience size is going to be way bigger than the people at GDC that's going to be looking at this, taking notes. And the thing is, half of the stuff they talked about, you don't think that the developers already know how the SSD is going to work? I mean, if I remember correctly, didn't Sony come out and say that this dev kit has been out in the wild for quite some time now? So people pretty much knew what this was going to be. It was like they were trying to communicate to people that really don't care when it comes to the gaming people. They don't really care about the hard drive and how much faster it's going to be. Some people do, but the majority, the casual people, the ones that Sony pulled over from the Xbox platform and from other places, they don't care about that. And that's where their misstep was.
Forte, man, we got to do like a separate rant, man, because I want to pick your brain more about this, but I know if I do that, it'll probably go into the 11 o'clock hour. But no, that's some great points, man. Those are some great points. It's going to be interesting. Like, I wonder what's next now for Sony. Like, when I'm really curious as a gamer when we're going to see more information about maybe next generation games.
Not
even
until after Ghost of Tsushima.
You think after Ghost of Tsushima?
There's no look. I was shocked that they even did this much. I thought they was going to wait till after that because the thing is now, why would you open your mouth about anything game related to the games that you already have slated to come out? Like right now, they need to let the games speak for themselves because that's the one thing that Sony has a huge advantage in. They have a huge advantage in the games that they make. Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, if those games live up to the expectation like most people think they are, they're going to... all this will be forgotten. People will forget about this because guess what? Software is what sells these systems. So it will be in their best interest to pretty much not say anything else about the system. Maybe talk about the price, but they probably won't show any of the games until after Last of Us. I think that would probably be the perfect time to do it. Let Last of Us release. Let the critical acclaim, if that game is going to be everything it needs to be, let people soak it all up and say how great it is. Let everybody get back in the good graces of how Sony makes great games, and then drop what games are coming out for the PS5, and then let that conversation continue into Ghost of Tsushima, and then that's how you're going to basically overcome the not tragedy but just the missteps of what they was doing with this marketing campaign. But who knows, Sony can do anything they want to because they're the market leader, but that's just my thought. They should.
Well, there's the potential problem.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was muted. There's the potential problem also that Last of Us may not make it in April.
I don't think it is now.
Given what's going on. I mean, that's probably got to be shoving everything back. I mean, I think Last of Us was going to make it in April, but now you're basically saying all these people got to go home, work from home, and figure out how in the world they're going to get bug reports from all over and then address those bug reports and get their dev kits at home and their setups at home. I mean, you're basically talking about setting up remote development in a matter of days in order to get the team back up and fixing bugs, some of which are probably pretty critical bugs, when they've not worked that way before. And they were probably running to make their April deadline, under the wire anyway. And now
Right.
who knows how many weeks it's going to take these guys to get set up and functioning at a meaningful level. I mean, if let's put it this way, if those guys make their deadline with this work from home Corona thing, that will either show you that, hey, that's great, they were pretty much done, or
Right.
holy shit, these motherfuckers not only have mastered game development, but they have figured out a way to work from home in a way that is super impressive and that should be mirrored by all kinds of other companies, because that's a big fucking order, a tall order.
Now, I have a question, Enrique. I don't know if you have it as a topic, but were you going to talk about the almost somewhat confirmed leak of the release date of the new for the Xbox, or you was gonna skip over that?
Well, I think Jaffe mentioned Thanksgiving, but my understanding is that that Microsoft came back and said it's holiday and not
No, they
Thanksgiving.
did. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is Jaffe is absolutely right in that. I think Microsoft kind of they're saving bullets in their chamber right now. I don't think that was a mistake. The fact that the actual Xbox website said Thanksgiving, which kind of is weird to me because that's a logistical nightmare to like release stuff on the day that most people, I mean, it is the biggest shopping day of the year, but I just think it's crazy to release on that day. But Microsoft might have been thinking, like, we don't know what Sony's going to announce. Let's have something ready to show when our system is going to release. And the fact that they took it down real quick kind of lets me know that that's probably the next thing that Microsoft's willing to talk about, baby. So it's a game of cat and mouse right now. But I don't think that was a mistake that actually got leaked out, because I think Microsoft is planning their next move versus what Sony does.
I mean, maybe. I got to pay the bills here real quick, Forte.
Go ahead.
Show on with the $4.99 super chat says, Jeff, you hit the nail on the head. Microsoft Corp doesn't like being embarrassed. They learn their lessons and change course aggressively. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Appreciate it. Jaffe, back to your point about the whole Last of Us Part 2 thing. I mean, I don't think any of us would be surprised if that game got pushed back because of this work from home situation. I mentioned Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and Square Enix already put out that, hey, we're still targeting April 10th, but that, with any unforeseeable changes in distribution and retail landscape, which varies across countries, it's increasingly likely that some of you will not get a hold of your copy of the game on release date. So...
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really weird to see what happens. Hey, fellas, I just give you a heads up. I got 5 more minutes and I got to take off. So that's what I got. So
no worries, Jaffe. We definitely appreciate the time. Oh, real quick, Jaffe, I know you got 5 minutes. I'm sure this question has probably come up in your podcast with PlayStation games first party going PC, and I'm sure you've heard the argument that it devalues PlayStation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's stupid. I think it's great. I mean, I heard. I'm trying to remember who wrote this. It was an article where they likened it to a game coming out on PlayStation 5 or 4 is basically akin to a big movie release, and then you're going to now start seeing different bites of the apple or new bites of the apple with, okay, and then it'll eventually go to PC. That's kind of like when it goes to Netflix, and then it'll go to PlayStation Now. I mean, it's basically just more ways for the company to make money with their games. The idea that it devalues PlayStation, that's a ridiculous concept. I mean, that's basically what you're saying is you don't want PlayStation to make a lot more money off their content that they're going to pump back into video game development. To me, that would be adding value to PlayStation because you're getting more money and more resources to make more games and make them better. I think what it is there is I've talked about this before. There's a very childish, irrational, embarrassing love people have for these boxes. And if you're under the age of 12, I think that's fine. But anyone over the age of 12 that has this, I think it's super cringy and super embarrassing for them. And so I think really that's what you're seeing is you're seeing grown motherfucking men acting like man, it's not going to be on my box only now. I don't have that feather in my cap anymore. It's like, motherfucker, here's a news flash. If you thought that was a feather in your cap, we were making fun of you. Nobody agreed that was a feather in your cap. That's like, I mean, it's just, I hate to be a dick about it, but I'm sorry. It's a fucking video game box, dude.
Exactly.
Play your fucking games.
Exactly. Jaffe, and I know you got to go real quick because we want to talk about crunch real quick. We're going to segment that next, but how serious is crunch in the gaming industry?
It's extremely serious, but it's extremely necessary unless you want to see budgets of games go up. But I think in any industry, there are the people who want to come together and make stuff. I mean, it's a big topic, but let's just say this. To make things great requires great sacrifice, and not every company needs to be Naughty Dog or Sony Santa Monica. There are plenty of games that can be made that require a great deal of professionalism and creativity and passion, but they're not trying to be the kind of games that Naughty Dog makes. And I think that's fine. But I think anybody at this point that goes to work at Naughty Dog or Sony Santa Monica or CD Projekt Red and acts all like, oh, it's crunch. It's like, yeah, that's what they do there. That's kind of like going to work for Steve Jobs and it's like, he yelled at me. It's like, yeah, that's what he does. That's the game. That's what you signed up for. I think a bigger conversation, really, to me, that's a more important one, is more along the lines of why we get crunch. There are gamers out there that demand a level of visual fidelity, which is where you get most of the crunch from. And as a guy who's more about gameplay and more about the interactivity of the medium, most of it is not because they're sitting around and staying till 4 a.m. every night because they're kind of like, we have to figure out new ways to do gameplay. Most of it's just like, like in the article from Schreier, it's like, oh, look, the bag of flour deflated when you shot it. It's like, fine. I mean, if I would much play a game that's compelling. I mean, I'd rather play Slay the Spire, or I would rather play, I'm trying to think of a bigger game on console that's, I would rather play, the new Call of Duty Battle Royale than I would play another third-person cinematic action that plays like all the other ones. I'd rather play Bloodborne. I don't think Bloodborne even though I suck at it, I don't think Bloodborne has the same level of fidelity that a Naughty Dog game has, but I think it's a more interesting piece of gameplay. And so a lot of it really comes down to the fact that there are a group of gamers that demand this level of visual fidelity. I don't. And so I look at it and go, wow, that's a lot of sacrifice for a bag of flour that has to deflate. But as long as people keep showing up and buying those games, there are going to be companies like Naughty Dog that go, look, this is what they're demanding. Yeah. I mean, you see the shit that Gears of War 5 got when it came out because it wasn't Naughty Dog quality. Yeah. I thought it was a fine game. It wasn't brilliant. It was a good B-level matinee, catch a movie in the afternoon shooter. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
It doesn't need to always be more than, but some gamers demand everything that comes out has to be a magnum opus, and there are companies that like to make those, and Naughty Dog is one of them. And I think if you go work at Naughty Dog and you complain about crunch, you're a moron.
Jaffe, I definitely appreciate the insight, man. I know you got to go. Love having you on, man, and definitely would love to have you back on again.
Anytime.
Yeah, definitely want to link up with you sometime to talk about the election, though, because that would be a great conversation.
I love talking politics. Let's do it. Hit me up. You guys have a good rest of your stream. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jaffe. Appreciate it, man.
Of course. Bye, you guys.
See ya.
Take care, man.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys. So that was, I thought it was very insightful about the crunch thing. And that's kind of been my, we talked about this on Crossfire last Friday about crunch. I think we've all experienced crunch to an extent. And it's funny, I've had people say, I don't know if this has happened to you, Slubbo. I think so. Did someone accuse you of supporting the mistreatment of human beings or something on Twitter because of this?
Not recently. No.
No, because I feel because I've had people tell me, "Oh, you're supporting the mistreatment of people working.
No, that was me. That was me. That was having.
Oh, was that you?
That was you. Called me. That dude called me straw man.
I've had people call me a bleeding heart after all this crunch talk, but which is
bleeding heart.
A bleeding heart. I mean, I don't know, guys. Like I'm not advocating the mistreatment of people, but I think what Jaffe said, it's like, hey, this is what these studios do. It's not, it's not something that people aren't aware of, right?
See, that not to cut you off, that's kind of like where I was coming from. It's like, it's not about not having empathy. Like I said, I have empathy for anybody who's going through a situation, a stressful situation. And Slow-Mo kind of hit it on the head when he said, there's a bunch of different arguments that are going on. And it's like, nobody's really talking about what the main thing is. And my only point was, it sucks and it's terrible, but at the same time, like Jeff was kind of alluding to, certain companies do certain things. And I'm not saying that Naughty Dog doesn't, and we're talking about Naughty Dog in particular because that was the article that Jason wrote about. It sounds like a lot of their problems could be alleviated if they get a producer. That's what I took from the article. They don't work with producers, and the producer's kind of the person that kind of keeps things on schedule and kind of lets everybody know what their task is, and maybe they need to try to get that into their culture. But the argument that people keep coming back with when they want to come at you and feel like you're not having empathy and this and that, I'm just like, there's things to truly, truly have a lot of empathy about. It's kind of hard to have a ton of empathy for somebody who's being paid to do a job. Yeah, the situation may be crap, but they're not chained to the desk of staying there. If they have to go work at Target in the time being, they may have to do that if that's really messing with their quality of life. That's kind of, and I know that may sound cold, but it's sort of like what are we talking?
Yeah.
The way people keep making it sound is like, I'm like, it's like it's slavery in a way, and it's like it's not really slavery. It sucks. It's terrible. I mean, people, if they're getting that beaten down by it, yeah, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah.
I mean, I look at it like I would never advocate again for the mistreatment of employees.
Right.
I think if you're not being compensated for the work that you're doing, that's not probably a place you want to work at. But I also believe there's certain things, certain jobs that are very demanding, right? Being a lawyer is very demanding. You're going to crunch if you're a lawyer, right? Slow-Mo is a tech guy. I'm sure Slow-Mo probably has crunch too, right?
I was crunching Thursday and Friday of last week. It's it is a part of the job. I think as Eve was saying, and as we've been kind of saying, and even I do agree with Jaffe to a point that if you're gonna go work at Naughty Dog, I mean, like, you're in the industry, their reputation. Like in my industry, I know of the reputation of certain companies. So if I decide to work there, knowing how that company's reputation is and that it is verified, to a certain degree, I should know what I'm getting into. Still doesn't make like some of the things that happen justified, but at the same time, you should understand that this shouldn't be a shock to you. I do think there's a difference between, and shout out to Cole who's in the chat, because he mentioned this on Scumcast last Saturday, that there's a difference between crunch and massive crunch, extreme crunch, where crunch is, for 3 months, you're working every single day to a degree, maybe one day off a week, but you're working like 12, 13 hours to try to reach this deadline, to try to get the game to hit gold so that we can have it ready for launch. Understood. I think every single developer knows that is a requirement for the job and something that they're fine with. But let's say your producer or your director says, we got a crunch for the next 3 months, and you say, cool. But then that becomes 6 months. That becomes 9 months. Now it's been a year of crunching, and you originally said 3 months. Like that loss of trust from what you said initially, it wears on people. The health risk that comes with working all the time with no downtime. You start making mistakes. Your quality of work no longer is at the same level that it used to be. I remember working one time, and I was working nights, and this is just me. I can't work nights. Me personally, I just can't do it. I tried it for a year, and near the end of it, when I had to switch back to days, because I told my boss, I said, look, I'm either going to fall asleep driving home and die in a car accident.
Damn.
Or like I mean, I'm
gonna die.
I was really like because my issue was I couldn't sleep during the day. So that's that lack of sleep, that lack of rest over time wore on me to the point where I was driving with my eyes open and I would sleep, really sleep. And then once I like woke out of it, I'd be like on the wrong side of the road. It was 4 a.m, so there was no other cars out there, but still it scared the crap out of me.
Oh my God. Wait. How many hours were you working, Slow-Mo? Holy shit.
I was working about 10 hours a night. Shit. But it wasn't just the hours. It was the fact that when I was off, I couldn't sleep. I cannot sleep during the day now for some reason due to I just couldn't adjust. But what I'm getting to is that lack of sleep, that lack of rest over time gets to you where like your work will be affected. Like I wasn't effective at work. I was making really basic, silly mistakes that I wouldn't have made if I was a more well-rested, energized employee. And so at some point you start getting diminishing returns when you're working people that hard. Is it really worth it at that point? And then for the long term, when you get employees as Jonathan Cooper had mentioned, where 70% of the staff that worked on Uncharted 4 is no longer there. Well, look, like you're not going to always replace people who are at the same level of quality as the people that you had before. You don't want to turn Naughty Dog into BioWare, where the majority of people who there aren't the people who made the Mass Effect trilogy. And you're getting games like Anthem. It's like you don't want that to become the reality for your studio. So it's just long term, it's not a good look. I think the big issue that I think gets confused is that people who are complaining about crunch are complaining about massive crunch. And then the people who are saying crunch is no big deal, like, what are you complaining about? They're just talking about the regular crunch that everyone deals with, regardless of industry.
Wow. Yeah, the only crunch I do is Captain Crunch. Haha. What's up, Optimus Code? We got Code in the house. Code, hey, can you hear us? Are you there?
Yeah, man. How y'all doing?
What's up, Code? On, man? I ain't scared of you motherfuckers.
Man, how's everybody doing?
We're doing very well, Code. I gotta say, even though you lost that debate, man, you are a good sport.
Yeah, let's have that debate again in about 4 months.
Hey, I'm getting a lot of heat for people, man, after these console reveals now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, sure. PC will always have the upper hand. That upper 1.5% of PCs will always have the upper hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like that when they come out because all the hardware that they're showing off, and people keep saying, you can't even get that in PC today. I'm like, yeah, today, but in 3 months you can. So
yeah,
before
PC
the consoles
always
come
innovating.
out, yeah, before the consoles come out, you're going to be able to get it. So like, that's a really bad point to make. But
you know, when I saw these CPUs, I'm like, I've had that CPU for months. You know, ray tracing, I've had that for months.
And Reggie, you a hater, man.
Why gotta be a hater?
Hey,
I don't know why you like that.
At this point, is completely irrelevant to the topic. But on Steam right now, Disco Elysium is on sale for 25% off. So,
ooh, that's actually one of the best PC games out there.
I think I already got that.
Did you play Code?
I know. I have like 843,000 games that I buy, but I haven't played yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What?
Just ask Code if he played the game. Code hasn't played.
Right, I'm on Heavy Rain, right? Like, tell him, Slow-Mo.
Code hasn't played a game that has released in 2017 yet.
Hey, you can't.
That ain't true, but yeah, it's bad.
You can't even talk about the first Legend of Zelda because he hasn't played it yet.
Wow. All right, look, so here's how this goes, right? Like, and this is God honest truth. When I first started programming, it was this old guy. His name was Kent Burkhardt. I probably shouldn't say his name.
Did you crunch with him? Did you crunch?
Everybody crunched. Yeah, that was just normal.
Yeah, give us your insight on crunch too, Coach. Since we're talking about that, by the way, I know you talked about it on Crossfire, but on Friday. But
I will. But I want to tell this story real quick to explain my backlog. Basically, long story short, a lot of us new developers came in. We had ideas, but this guy was really set in his ways. And since he had been with the company for a long time, he had a lot of pull in the way things went. But he was very inefficient. His code was horrible, but he had the cachet, even though we were all better than him. And very early on in my career, I learned that I didn't want to be that guy that just rested on what I had done in the past. And I had made a commitment to myself to always stay current, always stay relevant, keep up with the latest trends and development and all of that stuff. So because of that, even right now to this day, there's games that I want to play, but some new JavaScript framework will come out and I need to be fluent in it. So I'll take a week or two off. I'll go build a few apps in that new framework. Then a little while later, it'll happen again. So I have to keep myself current. And that just contributes to my backlog getting bigger and bigger and bigger. One of these days, I'm just going to take like the summer off and just get all caught up. I plan to do that this year, and I might now with all this coronavirus stuff. We'll see. But the backlog trouble is real, but it's because life is just there. I wish I had the time that I used to, but I just don't have that much time anymore. So Slow-Mo, I don't need your little side eye comments because I'm trying to keep myself paid, man. You got to understand the hustle.
Oh man, look, I definitely feel you, man. I'm just messing with you. Look, I start games with the full intention of finishing it.
hey, at least you're not like Forte, Slow-Mo.
Oh yeah, like Forte don't even start the game, don't even take it out the plastic. I mean,
well, being Forte the same. Yeah. I got them. Like I can show them to you.
1,000 of them. I can
show. Yep. So as far as crunch goes, I think Slow-Mo summed it up well. It's fun in the beginning. You do expect a certain amount of crunch. That's just par for the course. But there's times when, well, for us anyway, I mean, it was easily over a year of crunch. And again, it was fun for a while, like it really was. And like we didn't go home. That was like they got us little beds and cots, and we weren't beds, like little cots, and everybody got a little sleeping area. We had couches, and you would claim your little area, and it was pretty big, so you could like set up some privacy for yourself. And we just stayed. We lived at work, like that's how it was. And once a week, we would go home to my house and shower, take a real bath instead of like a little whole bath. And then we would go back to work and we would be there again for a week or a week and a half. It just depended. And they did a lot of stuff, like they would bring in food and dinner. Like they tried to treat us right. So it wasn't like cruel. But with the Naughty Dog thing, and not to really single them out in particular, just they have been the topic of conversation recently. But in the video game industry at large, that crunch is getting more and more extreme, where the extreme crunch is trying to become what is normal. And I disagree with those comments from earlier that you go to Naughty Dog, you know what you're getting into, stuff like that. I don't think that's true on two levels. The first level is that a lot of us didn't, until this most recent guy tweeted all this stuff, even with that article that Schreier had written, a lot of us are just now understanding, hey, Naughty Dog is pretty notorious for crunch. There's plenty of people that didn't know that before they went and applied there. And again, not using them, just some no-name company. And so some people are just now being made aware of it because dude is making a big deal out of it. And then a second thing is, like, it's not true that if you go there, you know what you're going to get. I've interviewed and they say, hey, we really want to bring you on board. And in the interviewing process, and when they give you their offer letter, they tell you a lot of things that they want to be true, and they aspire for these things to be true. And they will tell you, you will say, hey, well, I hear you have really bad crunch cycles. I'm really not trying to get into that. Have you learned from that? What's an expected amount of crunch? And they will tell you, yes, we learned from our mistakes. We understand it's not sustainable. And we're really working hard with all these different areas. And we try to limit crunch to X, Y, Z. And so far, we've done good at doing that. So they tell you that that is a thing of the past. It's not true that you go in there knowing you're going to get a year of crunch. They don't tell you that. They don't sell you that. And honestly, they try to avoid it. They just get into situations where they can't help it. And I think that's the part that's being missed. Crunch is not deliberate by the game company. They're not trying to be cruel or mean or slave drivers. Like I think EJ said, it's not slavery. Number one, it's not as cruel as slavery, to be sure, and they don't even mean to do it. If were it up to them, they wouldn't. They just put in a situation where they need all this effort from everybody, especially with a not as mature team as they had before.
You know,
So what are like some of the things that like lead to extreme crunch? You know what I mean? Is that just like at the end of the day, they're trying to add more stuff into the game, or like the scope of the game is bigger than what they actually thought it would be? And
So
you know what I
in
mean?
my
Now you kind of got to
experience,
bear down and get to it.
yeah. So in my experience, and I can only speak from what I've experienced, although I know a lot of people in current game development, they will share the same story. It's usually around performance, right? So it starts there. You will have performance targets that you want the game to run at so many frames per second at such and such resolution. And when you first start, it's not going to be at that. And you get everything in, and that optimization is what you do at the very end, because you don't even know what to optimize yet, because like the world isn't done. You don't know how many triangles you got, how compact or how complex some scenes are as opposed to others. So you basically get everything up and going, like Cerny called it, like the first triangle. So you just want to get it up, graphics on the screen where you can start to see the vision come together. And what happens is, depending on the technology you chose and the skill of your team, the very first thing that you're trying to do is get the frame rate to where it is. And you have milestones that you have to hit with your publisher, because they expect this amount of functionality by this date, so on and so forth. The very first thing you're trying to do is make the game performant. Then after that, of course, is bugs and it's content. You have play testers, you have QA testers, and if you get a whole list of bugs back, then yeah, EJ, you're gonna have to deal with those bugs. You're gonna have to deal with, okay, we ran it on this machine, but we realized in this particular configuration, we get these errors and these bugs. And that's why developing for a console is so much easier than developing for a PC, even though it is getting better for PC. On PC, the one of the things you brag about as a PC gamer is that you have infinite freedom with infinite configurations. But as a developer, you cringe when you hear that. It's like, oh God, now it's got to support this thing and it's got to support these three things working together, all of this stuff. And again, it's a lot easier to do now with like common interfaces for all of the different pieces. But on the console, you know exactly what you're dealing with and no more. So you can focus a lot on just that. But at the same time, there are still certain things that will get you into trouble with the console, especially like when the Pro came out, or the regular PS4 versus the Pro. So now you got two models, and this is running good here. So now you got to make sure that the code can scale up. So you just run into issues, mainly getting it performant, then bug fixes, and then after bug fixes, the next big thing after that is what they call polish. You want bells and whistles. It has to be like your special effects and all of this stuff. And then the length of the story, reading off the CD, off the hard drive, all of that stuff factors into it. So mainly you're just trying to get the game to run in a state where it is appealing to a gamer, because it's not really that until maybe like the last 4 or 5 months that when it all starts to come together.
Yo, Code, I got a question for you, and it's something that kind of ties into something that Jaffe has said, and it's about games that are more graphically intensive, the more visual
Yeah, the high fidelity. Yeah.
But that high fidelity game is what really kind of drives a lot of the crunch that people see, massive crunch that people are seeing going on now. I've seen other developers on Twitter say things like, we've kind of reached a certain point with graphical fidelity where it's like
someone said that today, right? Slow-mo, that guy that you tweeted?
Yeah. That there's only so much further you're going to go with that. It's not it's not like you're getting so much more with next gen on the visuals than you wasn't getting with this current gen. So do you think there's going to be like a breaking point with that? Because at some point, the more you're trying to pack into the visual side of things, the more people you need, the bigger budget you gotta have. At what point do we just say, you know what, is this really worth it? Let's just worry about making a game that's more diverse and more unique, or add more enemies on the screen. The those additional polygons can be used for that instead of something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, man. Yes, my thing since the first day I came on this show, I was talking to y'all about real next level gaming versus just prettier graphic updates. Like, I'm sick of that. It's the same game, it just looks prettier. I want the next gen to offer real next gen gameplay.
But what
but
does
I
that
will.
mean? But what does that mean, Optimus? So when you said like next gen gameplay, like what is that? Are you mean like VR, or do you mean like
VR would be great, but no. So I mean, like, there's so many things that we can do with machine learning and genetic algorithms. So, like, I use this example on Twitter.
Code, you're talking above my pay grade, man. That sounds like some Terminator TI shit.
Okay, sure, my bad.
Is this Skynet? I don't want my game to come alive.
Yeah, it's Skynet, exactly. So imagine, let's say we're playing Gran Turismo, and instead of having 15 or 20 cars in a race, you got 400, and in that race, each one of those cars has its own unique AI that is specific to it, and it's not just like one track AI. Or each car has a driver, and his driver has a profile, and he has characteristics, or she has characteristics, and as you play, this driver learns and adapts to the way that you drive. And like, you can have an actual rival evolve that they didn't code or program into it, just through machine learning and the neural net. The AI in your game is adapting to you. And if Slow-Mo and EJ are playing that same game, a different driver does different things, and neither one of our experiences are exactly the same, because the AI is adaptive and it is learning with us. It is adjusting to us. So the game is never the same for two people. Things like that is what I mean when I say next gen, like AI, computations, machine learning. And I disagree with the guy that like we'll reach a tipping point or a breaking point with the graphics. I used to think like that early in my developer career. We used to have 640K of RAM, and we were like, what could you ever want more RAM than that for? And now it's like 16 gigabytes of RAM. So technology constantly amazes me, and I have learned not to limit. But yeah, I remember when the first iPhone came out, and I was like, oh my God, what is that? And now I can't live without a smartphone. What'd you say? What'd you say, trash Android boy?
You know how to throw that out there. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to One Bad Mother. I don't know if you can. OBM, are you there, man? Can you hear us? Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
OBM. So, guys, I want to invite One Bad Mother because I've known this dude for like 16 years. Is that right?
Wow. 2002. We're at day one Unreal Championship.
Yes. Okay. So we go back.
Enrique was trash, wasn't he?
Okay. Code.
Yeah, we got a historian, an Enrique historian here now.
Yeah, they OBM. They want receipts, man. They want to know what my KDR was.
I don't even remember my KDR. Man, I didn't even know it was Wednesday up until like a minute ago. I was like, I saw you guys on here. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Wednesday night.
Yo, man, that is a real symptom of what's going on right now, because I've been home. I'm like, true. What? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what day it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, my wife just said that too. My wife goes, I forgot today was your podcast. My wife never forgotten that today that my podcast is on Wednesday. She forgot because the days have kind of blurred together.
Yeah, man, it's real.
Yeah, but OBM, man, real quick. So we go back 18 years, Xbox Live on the OG Xbox Unreal Championship. Were you part of the same Xbox Live clan as me? I don't remember.
No, I wasn't part of the clan. Now I think you were in the Halo 2 nights from GameSpot, right? You were there, I think.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, so we used to do like custom games and things like that. So it's all a blur. Obviously you ended up on my friends list back then, and I think it was through those forums when we were, talking shit back in the
Yeah, exactly. Remember we used to console war, man. At least I did. I used to console war. I used to wave the green flag, as they say. But Code, I want to bring One Bad Mother in too, because he has recently gone to PCMR, man. Just want to throw that out
Oh
there.
Lord.
You
I'm
trying to
not
stack?
all
You trying to stack
mad.
decks up in here, man?
Oh, why OBM? Why would you do that, man? Explain yourself.
OBM, you
No,
know why? Go tell him, OBM,
actually,
preach.
I'm going to disappoint you here, okay? So, I did get a PC recently, but I actually went with a gaming laptop. So I gave up some power for the portability because it's now my Switch on the road. It's replaced my Switch, and also the biggest complaint I have with the console stuff is there is a lot of strategy games that I like, and you need keyboard and mouse.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
all right, you right on that one. Yeah.
So yeah, I think what I'm finding is the console and the PC are actually really good complements to each other because of the Game Pass. Because you got a bunch of games now. I could take this on the road, play some games, and come home and sit down on the couch and finish them off on the Xbox. So they're actually working.
You're already a better gamer than Enrique because you already said that you play on a console because it's a good complement to a PC. But go ahead, continue.
Wait. I have a console though. I have a console.
No, you don't. Your kids have a console.
No, I have a
console.
Excuse me.
No,
I have a PlayStation 4 Pro.
When last time you played that PlayStation 4?
Actually, this past weekend, I was playing Warzone.
Wait, yeah.
This dude
Forte, when's the last time you played your PS4?
My PS4 is not even hooked up, sir.
Okay.
But guess what? When's the last time I played on console? Right now.
That's slow-mo. Don't just ignore him. Just don't. Pay.
No.
This is
Slow-mo. I expect that from slow-mo, but you ain't gonna get away with it, brother. Come on now. You ain't getting away with it. Slow-mo can get away with it because that man plays on every piece of plastic he can get his hands on.
I'm actually playing on my mobile phone right now.
Exactly. He plays on. He plays on everything.
I knew Slow-mo was. I knew he was gaming because he was awfully quiet tonight. I was like, Slow-mo's probably gaming. I ain't mad.
Hey, OBM, can I ask you a question and you give me your opinion as an unbiased observer?
Sure.
All right, here's what happened. So me and Forte were talking about cheating on PC, and a certain member on the panel was like, "Oh, you can't act like every PC just has cheaters. That's just like a few games have cheaters. It's just a few cheaters, and you can't use that." So I was like, okay, only 1.5% of PCs have high-end graphics. Oh, if it exists at all, it exists for the whole group. Would you help me understand the logic in those two responses?
Oh man, that's a good one. How can one fallacy be another?
Yeah, the logic gymnastics for I
was just kidding,
Hold on. Wait. Let's go to the other side.
Lord.
So OBM. Let's say someone proposes that because the majority of PC gamers are gaming on a 1070?
1060.
Yeah, don't give them that much credit.
A 1060 at 1080p. That therefore they're not really more powerful because the new consoles are coming out and they're more powerful than that. But then when you mention that the majority of console gamers are gaming on base level PS4s and not even being sold anymore original Xbox Ones, that you're going to have to use both sides of that argument. They somehow feel like that doesn't apply. What do you think about that?
Hold on, OBM, let me reply.
No,
we only did it because they did it.
Can he say?
How about
OBM,
everybody?
Once they introduced it, like you call it, the logic gymnastics, we was like, oh, that's how we get down? Well, two can play that game,
Well,
and so that's how it
You know what, man?
How it happens.
I got too old for this. Back in the day, I used to do the same damn thing, try to justify whatever it is that I like. But I just say, everybody, you just do you, and whatever it is you like, that's in your price range. I've I've found I have an OLED, and I've found recently that I actually prefer hooking up after I started doing the PC stuff on the monitor. I started finding out that I liked the frame, having that quick response time on that monitor over the TV.
Facts.
So,
you know what it is? It's the refresh rate.
Yeah, and
Once
so
you
I'm
see
actually
that refresh rate, it's just you can't go back. It's really difficult.
I'm looking forward to on the Series X just hooking that thing up to the monitor and doing 1440 120 if that's an option, or even 1080 120. I think that when you start getting that you start to feel what games feel like when there's no delay. It's almost a different kind of game. But again, everybody's got their own thing. Some people want to be just immersed in that and just sit back, and I've noticed not everybody has the same eye for resolution or frame rate. So
look, man.
yeah, I don't really give a damn.
Hey, OBM, go ahead, man.
Oh, go ahead, man. No,
I was gonna say it's a great point, man. Like about the refresh rate, because like playing Sekiro on PC was night and day from playing it on console.
He actually did finish it on PC.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
I put in work. I was like playing 8 hours a day. Ask E.
So that had to be something to the frame rate thing, because when he was playing on PS4, he said, I cannot get past.
What's that, E?
Genichiro, you're like, I can't get past Genichiro. And that's like at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, Genichiro was kicking my ass.
And then he hit me up at the guy on the PC. He said, I washed him.
No, I mean, because it was when I was blocking, it was happening when I was hitting the trigger, and I'm like, I wasn't used to that level of response.
No, he had that PC courage at that point.
This is that's my main point about the rampant cheating on PC. We know he had a little aim bot, and now he want to brag. Of course, he's happy about the PC because it don't take no skills.
Oh my god,
code.
But we know it is true. Linus Tech Tips did a video not too long ago, a couple months ago, about refresh rates and high frame rates and monitors that can go up to like 240 hertz. And does that really make you a better gamer? And it actually showed it did. Like he took Shroud, Shroud's like a FPS god right now, and this guy had him playing on a 60 hertz monitor against him and other just random guys that just play gaming at 240 hertz, and they were keeping up with him in like their Twitch shooting test. So they basically had like someone will pop out of cover or run past a very narrow door, and how many times can you hit that person before the other person does, or how many times can you hit them, period. And they were keeping up with Shroud, who's basically that's his entire career. Like the guy spends 8 hours a day playing games and going up against people, stream sniping them, trying to like make a name for themselves and washing them. And they were keeping up with him simply because they were able to see the frames, and they were at that refresh rate allowed them to actually see a lot better when the enemy where the enemy was and be able to react. It was pretty interesting. It's truth to that. Like Enrique was able to win because he was able to see what the enemy was doing a lot sooner than he was on his trash PS4. At 3 frames a second.
We need that extra latency or that extra frame rate when we start getting older like that.
Look,
I can't do. I can't do what I used to be able to do.
Me too. That's why I understand why Code does games on console. Code's like 85. He needs all that refresh rate.
Well, you know what? In the next six to 7 months, he ain't got to worry about that no more.
Tell him again, young Forte.
Because everybody about to enjoy this 60 frames per second goodness.
Yeah,
tell him again, young Forte.
At medium settings. Have fun with that.
Okay, no, it was maxed out settings.
Okay, go ahead.
On one game, it's not going to be like that for every
old game.
You don't know. You speculation. Let's just deal with what we know right now.
Let me tell you something. They're showing.
Every game is going to be just like Gears 5. Right.
Code. They're out there showing Pac-Man right now at 120 frames a second, and people are cheering that with ray tracing.
I told y'all this before on that one episode. Slow-Mo brought up the thing he did with the Linus thing. Like we literally, like I was just sick of my my associates called my frame rate framework. Like we literally turned off the frame rate counter and we put them in the game. It's like, okay, now move around. How many frames is this running at? And they don't know. Like, okay, is this higher or less than now play over here? And they don't know like what it's actually running at. But if you put the counter up, then they're like, okay, I'm at 240 frames, and okay, I'm at 140, I'm at 110, and that counter helps them. Now, slow-mo, I don't know if your test is legit. If you say it, I believe it. But I know I have tested people, and they couldn't tell from Adam what frame rate they was running. Now, if it got below 60, they could start to tell, like, okay, no, this is lower. Below 30, they could at 30 or below 30, they could absolutely tell. But once we got above 90, they really could not accurately say which machine was running the lower frame.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. That is true. Like with mine, once I go above 90, the counter, I see it fluctuate. It'll be like 90, 110, 120. It'll fluctuate.
Yeah. So are you getting that with Ori? That fluctuation?
Well, no, I don't get any of that with Ori. But like,
are you locked at 140 frames with Ori? Because I get it, mine dips 144 to like 110.
No.
What?
Well,
Not that 2070 getting only what 110 frames per second?
I'm locked for the most part.
I ain't talking about you, Slim. I'm talking about that man that said that his graphics card was better than mine.
Hey, Forte.
Hold on, let me just get back to what I was saying.
I just want to know. I want him to answer that question. You locked at what frames per second?
For Slow-Mo's locked at 144. I'm getting
what
between
are you
like
locked at?
I'm getting between like 144 and like 110.
Oh man, that's all blasphemy right there. I mean, y'all got to join that 200 club.
But look, no, you don't, because like, it is true what Code is saying, that like you can't really notice the difference.
Oh, I didn't say you couldn't notice it. I'm just saying I know when I put my counter on, I see 200 frames per second. That's
great, Forte. Look, what I'm saying is that
but he got a better graphics card. Just saying.
But you're also playing at what settings? Medium settings?
Huh?
Ooh,
medium settings. What? Oh, wait a minute. Hold up. Are you playing at 4K on that monitor? Oh, well, my fault. You got a 1080p. What? 144 hertz monitor? Is that what you're playing on?
You don't have a 4K monitor? You have a 4K monitor?
No. What are you playing on right now?
Do you have a 4K monitor?
No.
Do you have a 4K monitor?
I'm playing on.
Do you have a 4K monitor? And I'm not talking about hooking it up. And I'm not. Do you have a 4K monitor?
I am playing on a 4K monitor because my TV, my computer is hooked up to my TV, which plays in 4K. So yes,
but you're not getting more frames on your 30. Look, don't bring your Walmart TV into this conversation. What do you got? You got that Walmart brand 4K?
Wait,
you got that 30. How much that?
Wait, you trying to say Sony brought you E model 900E
Forte. You cannot compare your $50 Walmart 4K that you got on Black Friday to my 1440p Dell monitor with 1 millisecond input lag.
Sony 900E is a Walmart brand TV. Are you serious right now?
Y'all remind me of Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, man.
It's okay. He's got 10. Just
because you playing on a microboard ain't my problem.
Hey, you know what? You got that 10 millisecond input lag. Have fun with that TV.
You tell me, what are you playing at 1080p, bro? Are you playing at 1080p?
I'm playing at 1440p. Ultra set max settings at higher frame rates. Thank you. It's not even a conversation. There's no conversation here.
What's the aspect ratio you running at?
There's no conversation.
Yeah, you running at 16:9. Guess what? Your boy over here running 1440p, 34 by 1400p, and we're running at 21 by 9 aspect ratio, getting over 200 frames per second. And Ori and the Will of the Wrist, bro.
You can't even say it's not Ori and the Will of the Wrist. It's Ori and the Will of the Wrist.
Hold on. Forte, you do realize that your monitor's not actually playing 200 frames per second.
It's not playing 200 frames.
No. I'm just saying it shows 200 on the counter, but I have it locked at 1440. I got it locked at 144. But it can go up to 200. You're not really getting it. It's just the fact that he playing at 1080p or 1440p, 16 by 9, when your boy over here playing at 21 by 9, 1440p, and got everything maxed out in Ori. Everything maxed out in Ori.
I wish I knew what the topic was.
It's a dick measuring contest.
It sure is.
But there's no contest here.
But guess what?
contest
But
here.
guess what?
I'm
But
about
guess
to
what? Your
there's
boy
no
is
contest.
willing to
All
go
right,
back.
moving on.
And
There's no
guess what? Your
contest
boy
here.
is willing
We
to
can
go
settle
back.
this
to
right
console.
now.
Enrique, next
Dude.
topic.
We
Let's
can
go.
settle this right now. Enrique, you got a 2070 Forte. What is your GPU again?
1080 Ti.
All right, I'm putting it in user benchmark so we see every single build that is benchmarked for this.
All
Real
right.
quick. And
While
if
you do
guys
that,
can
while
be
you
done
do
with
that,
this.
Slow-mo, I
While
want to
you
ask.
go ahead and confirm my theory, go ahead, Enrique. Finish your thoughts.
While you do that, Slow-mo, I want to talk to Optimus. You saw the PlayStation reveal, right?
I did. I
Yeah,
thought it was fabulous.
What did you think, man? Like, are you concerned about the teraflop difference?
Well, I've never been. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I
I
told
know,
you.
I'm
like,
joking.
oh yeah, better
Mhm.
teraflops, higher teraflops don't equal better games. It's going to be the skill of the dev team and the quality of the tooling. But I thought this show was fantastic. I was glued.
They were
to the
speaking to
screen.
you, weren't they? They were speaking to you, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, man. I was really impressed because
I agree.
I mean, just adding an SSD like this, there you have to do more than that, right? Because you're only as fast as your slowest component, and they talked about the strategy about how they made sure that the SSD was gonna operate at max performance. I like the way they tried to keep the power constant and let the teraflop scale up and down as necessary. I thought all of that was just like great and very clever problem solving.
Hey, I enjoyed it too. I just don't think it was what they needed right now. But as far as like me being, a tech guy and actually watching it, I was, I was really into the whole thing, even though I know a lot of people weren't. But real quick, Forte, what did you say your GPU was again?
Oh, 1080 Ti.
Oh yeah, well I already know what this is end up being.
Right.
But let me just go ahead and
The TI is watching that 2070. Man.
It's washing the hell out of it. It is effective speed 24% faster than Enrique's.
Yeah, that 2070 gonna have to take a haircut against that Ti.
Yeah, the average benchmark is 10% better, overclocked 11% better. Every single game in frame rates, it's better. Yeah, it's just a better GPU.
But still, that 2070 is nice too. I mean, it's fun to have these
is.
conversations. But anybody,
It was nice until he tried to tell me like months ago that his GPU was better, and I was like, "Take a haircut, sir."
Forte, I was joking.
No, you weren't. No,
yes,
you weren't.
That was
your
Forte.
inexperience speaking.
I was joking, Forte.
Take these L's.
I was joking because I was telling you didn't have ray tracing. I was joking.
And I told you, and I told you exactly this. I said, "Too bad the one feature that your GPU got tanks your frame rate by 20%. I will not take that."
But still, if you're getting 80 frames with ray tracing, why complain? That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's good.
Thank you. Thank you, Code. But
I'll wait for the 30. I'll wait for the 30 series to come out and perfect it a little bit more.
That's what I'm waiting on myself.
Exactly. Then I'll get a 3080 Ti, and then we'll see what Enrique says.
But we all friends. It's not a competition.
It's always a competition for Forte.
Yeah, it is. It sure is. Guess what? And I'm still gonna buy a console, and Enrique gonna be sitting there playing on PC by himself.
I will be playing by myself.
Hostility.
I will be playing by myself. I'll be playing with my friend. I'll be playing with other people that are playing on PC, and I'll be playing on people that are the Xbox ecosystem because Phil made that happen.
And guess what? As soon as those new systems come,
will be way more prevalent as the years go on.
And guess what? As soon as those new systems come out and everybody on the same playing field as PC, Enrique gonna get bodied by people on console that's playing on controller, and he trying to play on PC.
I don't know, man. I don't want cross-play with PC ever. I told y'all before. It's the cheating on PC just ruins crossplay for me. I don't want it nowhere around.
Now, you know what I think is and this is like not trying to get back into the debate, but being honest and not just trying to point. It is a whole lot better than it used to be. I think easy anti-cheat is a good way for developers to implement something that actually just runs. As soon as someone turns on that game, it immediately starts running to detect if they're running any mods or they're running anything that may actually be away. And sometimes it gives you a false positive. Like sometimes, like it'll knock me out. I'm not using anything. It'll just immediately go like, "Oh, what is that?" But it is a good way to just kill all the cheating stuff that's going on, and it stays pretty current. It's something that I think Destiny needs to implement ASAP because they need that bad.
Yeah,
they costed me a lighthouse run. God damn it.
Hey,
it's rampant there.
Yeah. Code, real quick. What do you think about the SSD implementation with PlayStation 5?
SST limitations.
No, SSD implementation.
Oh, I was going to say what limitation? I mean, again, I thought it was fabulous. I looked at what they were doing with their own controller. He briefly went over the thinking that went into the controller to make sure that it wasn't bottlenecked and they could get the throughput that they were after. I am impressed. Again, that's just on paper. We have to see it. We need to see it in the wild actually doing stuff.
Right.
And I'm not sure what the throughput is on the SSD in the Series X is
2.5.
Going to say it's going to have to do a whole lot to match that 5.5 gigabytes.
It's not going to match it.
It's
2.5. I think. What did they say?
Is that max?
Well, it's 2.5 raw and like 4 point something compressed. I think
compressed. Where the what's the name is like 5.5 raw and 8.7 compressed. It's
I missed that. I didn't see that. I did think
literally double. It's double everything. Literally.
I have the whole spec for comparison for both of them. I can pull that up and
that'd be great. The one thing I thought Cerny trying to gloss over, he talked about the new compression that they were using, but he never really mentioned the cost.
The Kraken?
Yeah, he never really mentioned the cost for the decompression once like your assets are being loaded. So he made it seem like it was just a big win with the file size without mentioning the cost to decompress.
So the PlayStation 5 is the 8 core Zen 2 3.5, where Xbox is 3.8. Teraflops 10.28 for the PlayStation with 36 CUDA cores, clocked at 2.36 gigahertz. Xbox, same thing, 12 teraflops, 52 CUDA cores at 1.82 gigahertz. Both have the RNDA 2. Memory is slightly faster on the Xbox at 320 gigabits versus 256. Memory bandwidth is 448 gigabits versus the Xbox has 10 gigabits dedicated to the games at 560 gigabits per second and 6 gigabits by 336. SSD, which is kind of weird, they actually said 825 gigs. Whatever.
What does that mean? Like per second? No way.
No, 800. No, that's how big the hard drive is. Total internal memory is 825 gigs on the PlayStation. Xbox has a 1 terabyte NVMe, and then the throughput is 5.5 gigabits raw. Typical is 8 to 9 gigabits compressed. Xbox is 2.4 raw to 4.8 compressed. They both had the expandable slots in them. PlayStation has USB HDD support. Xbox has 3.2 HD support, and they both have optical drives and Blu-ray drives. That is the complete list.
Code. Let me ask you, where do you see the differences in these consoles, man? Because at least to me, it seems like Sony went with a fast, efficient machine. Maybe not as power intensive on the GPU side, where I feel like Microsoft went with like the brute force of GPU.
You know what? He needs to explain. Like, for a lot of people, don't even know what throughput is. Why don't you explain, Code? What is the throughput? What does that actually do for you when it comes to your games?
Sure. So the throughput is just a measurement of how fast data can travel. So let's just say I'm in Philadelphia and I want to go to New York and I want to get on the highway and I can run 100 miles an hour. And so if New York is 100 miles away from me, I ought to be able to run to New York in an hour. But if the highway is clogged up with cars and the traffic is there and I can't actually run 100 miles an hour, I may have to run 60. It's not because I can't run 100. It's because the area where I'm traveling is just filled up, is cluttered. And so I don't have the ability to go my fastest. And that is called, that's the bottleneck, because even though the SSD can give you 8 gigabytes of data per second, if that pipeline is not capable of keeping up with that speed, then you only get whatever the pipeline allows you. And that's why with all of this stuff, you're only as fast as your slowest component.
Right.
And so what they have done is they have created a custom controller to guarantee that their SSD can operate at full capacity without being bottlenecked somewhere else. And that's what I thought was really impressive about the controller.
So let me ask something, Optimus. So the guy in the chat says PlayStation 5 specs are smoke and mirrors.
I don't think that's true. What does he mean by that?
Either.
He's saying I'm noticing Sony fans are using the high end of PlayStation 5 CPU and GPU performance when PlayStation 5's performance is variable on both. PlayStation 5 specs are smoke and mirrors.
No, so again, I thought he did a really good job of explaining that. So, say you want to run, like you said, if they increase the clock cycle to so many frequencies, then they're going to generate heat, and they're going to have to power it, and they're going to have to make sure that they are cooling the system. And the power in so for example, he gave the example, if he's playing God of War, he can hear the fan in his PS Pro because it's taking more power to keep the system cool and to generate the graphics that you need for God of War to run. And what happens is right now, the Sims is only using 1 teraflop. And if you put God of War on, it's using the full 1.9 teraflop. Well, when it's drawing those 1.9 teraflops, now it needs to generate more power. So that's where the fan comes on. And that's why your PS4 will make different noises depending on what game you're playing. What they did instead was they will always keep the power a constant. So the fans and the power is always running at a particular rate. They cap the GPU, I think he's like 2 something gigahertz.
2.23.
Okay. Gigahertz. So that way, no matter what, that's the max that it could do. They keep the power max, and then the teraflops will just be whatever the game demands. It's the exact same thing that's happening. Every game doesn't require the same amount of graphics processing, but they change the variables such that they're keeping the power constant and let the other things vary instead of letting those things be a constant and letting the power vary. But it would be your experience from a game point of view is not going to be any different. Your game will be able to run at the full potential of the system without that extra fan noise or that extra heat.
Yeah. And
it's not smoke and mirrors at all.
And that's what I took. Yeah.
Go ahead, Forte.
No, I say that's what I took from, because like when you look at the differences between the GPUs and the CPU, Microsoft just gave you the number that theirs is going to clock up to, where Sony was like, ours is going to start, this is the constant that is going to run at 3.5. It can get to that 3.8, but like you said, in order to keep everything running as efficiently as it actually needs to run, we're just going to cap it at 3.5. Microsoft basically said, this is overclock. We're going to let this thing run like it needs to run, and we're going to worry about the cooling and everything in the way that we designed the system to actually be, cooled. And same thing with the GPU. People are looking at it's only running at 1.825 gigahertz, but they're looking at it like that's probably underclocked for them. And once you put in certain games, like once Halo get in there, that thing might boost all the way up to 3. You never know. It's just
whatever it needs.
Whatever the game needs to do, where Sony is saying this is what ours is going to consistently run at, and it's not going to be no more, no less. But Xbox is saying throttle to the wall. This is what we're doing, and we're going to allow the game to dictate how the system reacts to it.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be an issue for developers at all. Like, especially when it comes to like multiplats, it's going to be whatever the developer needs. They're going to have available for both consoles. It's not going to be like, I don't have it available on PS5, but I do on the Series X. They're going to, as we've mentioned many times before, they're going to design their game at the same level for both consoles, and then they're going to just build from there. So it's not going to be an issue, people.
No,
let me ask you something, Code, because this is why I like having you on, man. Because I feel like I'm not saying everyone does this, but I feel like a lot of people they read things in Digital Foundry and they're like, oh yeah, I know how that works. You know what I mean? But they've never actually never actually developed a game and use hardware or understand how the sum of all these parts work together, right?
Yeah.
You, sir, have that perspective, which is why I love having you on. So,
but you don't have to develop games like just being someone who builds PCs. You could also, like, this is system architecture stuff. This hasn't even gotten to programming yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, so I see people like quote a lot of Digital Foundry stuff, like the guy. By the way, we as Slow-Mo or Forte likes to say, we reading color. I forget what you guys say.
Yeah, so if you want to talk junk in the comment section, or you want your question to be answered because you're trying to be a tool, we need to see some color. Because other than seeing color, we colorblind up in here. I don't see nothing but color when it comes to that.
Oh,
hey,
wow.
I want to bring up something real quick that FC added me on Twitter from Tom Warren. So Tom Warren said about an hour ago, it's going to be interesting to see how often the PS5 GPU and CPU clocks run at their top frequencies. It looks like the quote unquote real performance of the PS5 will be in the 9 teraflop area, and Microsoft is claiming sustained 12 teraflop performance on the Xbox Series X. There's always going to be a gap.
That makes no sense.
I was about to say that, but you go ahead, Cole. You go first because I got a comment about that. Go ahead.
Okay, so that I mean, I don't know. I guess I have to understand what he's talking about. But that makes no sense. So let's just say the Xbox Series X can hit 12 teraflops, and let's say they can sustain it, because that's a good qualifier. Like, you have to sustain it, because a lot of times when they do benchmarks, let's say you can hit this number, but that's just like for 15 or 20 seconds while they doing the test. But then after that, the real performance happens. It's kind of like the weigh in at a fight. So if the Xbox One X can do 12 teraflops, and I decide to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey from this generation, when I put that in my Xbox Series X, it is going to be running at whatever teraflops it ran at on my Pro. It is, unless they do some special upgrading stuff. So even though the Xbox One X can run at 12 teraflops, it is only going to run as much as the game that's in it needs it to run. And not every game is going to push those full 12 teraflops. Actually, I doubt if any of them do it here for the next couple of years, like they say.
They don't even do that with, like I said, that's the one thing about PC. Like, there is nothing out here that pushes a 2080 Ti to its
Nothing.
Nothing pushes.
Star Citizen might, and Flight Simulator might.
Those ambition games, you're right. And granted, my 1080 Ti, that doesn't get pushed like knocked over on the ground. It's like at a certain point, the stuff that you have in your system is just for to say, like Slow-Mo said, just to measure dicks versus somebody else. That's basically all this actually is. But where consoles come in, the later you get in the generation, the more that stuff gets taken advantage of. That's why things get better and better towards the end of the generation, because they learn how to harness every drop that system has. Where PC, you're consistently always upgrading, and they're always just saying, okay, well, what's the next thing that we need to at least try to challenge? But they're never challenging anything except for the lower end cards. That's the only thing that gets challenged in all this.
Optimus, we have FC Violet, who I think is he's questioning your expertise, I think.
Okay. Sure. What are you talking about?
He's saying it's sustained at 12. It doesn't move.
Oh my God, that is false.
Wait, real quick, Optimus. This is the part that, I love when you. It's funny, and I love Digital Foundry, but when it's just funny. Like, people are like, no, Digital Foundry said that we're not going to listen to someone who has made video games. We're going to go with what Digital Foundry said.
Look, man, Digital Foundry will. If you ask Digital Foundry, if you put in a game in your Xbox Series X, is every game you put in your Xbox Series X going to, like that whole thing run at 12 teraflops? That doesn't even make sense. Those terms don't even go together. It is this game requires a certain amount of computational power, of which the 12 teraflops is the most that the One X can do. There will hardly be any games at all that will require 12 teraflops. So there's no reason to run at 12 teraflops because no game is going to be that demanding. The teraflops is the number of floating point operations per second. What this means is you have many floating point operations that you can run in a second, and those floating point operations are the result of calculations that you need to work the physics and the geometry and all of the stuff in your game world. Ori will not require near as many teraflops as Forza Horizon 4. It is not true that any game you put in there is at 12 teraflops. The game demands what the game demands. What that is saying, though, is you can build a really massive game as powerful as something that does demand 12 teraflops, and it will run on that system. And if you try to put that same game that's running at 12 teraflops on a lower system, on a 1060, it won't be able to run on the 1060 because it doesn't have the computational power to create and sustain the game. But it doesn't mean that every game is going to be at 12 teraflops. Just like on the PS4, not every game is going to run at the 10 teraflops. It's not necessary.
Hey,
in the generation, a lot of games will.
Yeah, Code, real quick, hold on for a take. Code, so FC Violence says the clocks are sustained. Xbox doesn't move, apparently. Slow-mo, tell the man to stop spreading false info.
Oh my God!
It's all right, man. Battletoads gonna. I'm not
going to tell him that because he's not spreading false info.
That makes no sense.
Let me back him up on this. See, look, people need to go back and look and see exactly what Microsoft is saying, especially about those older games. Code is absolutely correct when he's talking about if you put Ori running on this system, is it going to require any more juice than it is running now? What they're saying is if you put this game on the new Xbox's hard drive, you're going to get better frame rates and you're going to get better fidelity. It's just going to run better. But it's still using the same amount of power to do it. The only difference is it's not being bottlenecked by what the system was doing before. It still has to say, all this system does is give it more headroom. It's not going to run faster. The game has to be built to run faster before you can even get to the point where you're saying, oh, is it even going to challenge 12 teraflops? If Ori is set to run 8 teraflops or 6 teraflops on the Xbox One X, all it's going to do when you put it on that SSD for the new system is run better. It's not going to make
actually it'll be less teraflops, and that would be the CPU that would
the CPU is boosting it up more.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the GPU. What are you talking about? Yeah. Oh my God!
Wait! I want to go. I got to pay the bills real quick. One Bad Mother. Hey, thank you, OBM, who's with us live.
Yeah, I figured I'd chip in here since you let me actually talk in color today. So
if you're on the panel, you don't have to.
Yeah, but no, I appreciate that, bro. I really do. He says number one thing that holds back games is budget and time, not max theoretical power. We should be talking about who's making development easier. And a developer bet you that something about tools.
True.
Tools are more important than anything else.
Tools and compiling. Yes.
How about we let him elaborate on that more? Bring that up. Tell us what you think about all that, One Bad.
Well, I mean, that's really my number one takeaway from actually both these reveals is really the talk from the development community about the ease of development and how they've been excited about the PS5. So I think that's the reason gamers should be is. How do the developers feel? Well, we know that the PS3 was theoretically a lot more powerful than the 360, but developers used to oftentimes have better multiplats on the 360 just because they were able to work on that easier. And Microsoft did a good job giving them the tools. So now I think that the question, when we kind of go into the next gen is really what is Microsoft and Sony doing to help these developers? Because we saw this last gen, we saw a lot of AA's die out.
Did we lose him?
Did we lose him?
Okay, I
Yeah.
think we did.
He was getting to the good part too.
Yeah.
Sure was.
Hey,
OBM,
Code.
where you at, man?
Get there. Hurry up
Code.
and come back, one bad mother. We need to hear
Yeah,
it.
come back, OBM. Hey, Code. I'm gonna go to you because some people are like, we got some armchair developers in the live chat. This guy Elikin speaks as Microsoft said that 12 teraflop performance was fixed. Whether you need 12 teraflops for every game is a different issue. You're mixing your peas with your carrots, sir.
Oh Lord.
All right, so let's do this a different way. If I turn on my Xbox Series X and I don't put a game in it, is it running at 12 teraflops? So it's constant, it's fixed, right? So I just turn it on and it's output at 12 teraflops. What does that even mean? And so if you look at Ori as another example, Ori was made to run on RDNA 1. And we all know that a teraflop in RDNA, like 10 teraflops in RDNA 1 is the equivalent to like 3 or 4 in RDNA 2. It's just vastly superior. So you're saying that a game like Ori from an older generation chipset that ran at, 6 teraflops, which would be equivalent to 1 teraflop in the new RDNA 2, but just because we're putting it in this new console, they're going to do, 12 teraflops, 11. So they're going to do 11 extra teraflops of computations just to run that same game. That's stupid. That they can't even do that if they wanted to. There is no such thing as it's running at teraflops. You have a processor that's sitting there, and the game's code will run, and it will start making requests of the CPU and of the GPU, and the sheer number of requests have to reach 12,000. If it doesn't, it's not doing anything but just sitting there waiting to be utilized.
Hey, Optimus, real quick, I got to pay the bills here. Glorious War with the $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Says shout out to Optimus, who knows what he's talking about. A lot of frauds out here on Twitter. Optimus, I want to ask you a question though, because like I said, you got more insight into this than we do. I don't know any, I don't pretend to be.
Slow-Mo probably does too. Me and Slow-Mo probably the same on this stuff.
Yeah, but Elikin speaks on.
Don't say but. Don't disrespect Slow-Mo like that.
No, I'm not disrespecting him at all. Forte, stop trying to stir the pot, man. Go play Destiny.
I gotta protect my.
No. I know what you just say. You are
Slow-Mo. Come on,
you are a pot stirrer.
I'm the only one.
Let me tell you something.
Let
me tell you something, Forte. When
his face on this podcast, not you.
No. Stop trying to derail the show, Forte, by stirring the pot. You are a habitual line crosser.
What?
So
go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So all right. So these guys are saying Microsoft told you their performance was fixed. Sony told you there was variable. We're still having a debate over confirmed info. Hold on, and then FC Violent saying, "Oh well, Digital Foundry and Tom Warren said so. They're reporting this."
Reporting what? That as soon as I turn my Xbox on, it's using 12 teraflops?
No, that Microsoft's performance was fixed and Sony's is variable. So they're reporting that fact.
No, they don't even know what that means. So one thing, what Sony said was fixed was the power output. They have regulated the power so that no matter what game is running in the system, it consumes the same amount of power. Whereas before, like in the Xbox Series X, is going to be variable. The more the fans run, the more computation from the CPU, the more heat's going to be generated, the more power is going to take to cool the system down. What Sony has said is no matter what, with the power cycle, the power will always be the same. So no matter what the GPU does, up or down, is going to require constant power. The power is not variable. It didn't say that the specs or the teraflops was variable. They said the power to the system was constant.
So are you so how do you let me ask you, when you see this stuff from like Digital Foundry, Tom Warren, how do you report? Are they reporting things
Tom Warren is a senior editor.
First. I haven't
Tom Warren is a senior editor at The Verge. He is not a developer. I just want to point that out. I'm sorry, continue.
Well, I don't even know, but like I would read a Digital Foundry article, and very rarely have I seen them report false information. And so more than likely what's happening is the people that are repeating it don't understand the context in which it's being said. And so they're doing another oversimplification, taking it out of context and distorting the meaning.
That's why.
Can I say something real quick? I just want to quote Matt Phillips, who he's an ex Crytek developer, programmer, and director at Big Eagle Corp. And he says, as a 15+ year games programmer with 24 AAA titles released on every Nintendo, Microsoft, and PlayStation machine under the sun, neither I nor anyone else in my field has ever used quote unquote teraflop as a unit of measurement of any kind. Just drop the word. It's utterly meaningless. What's important for the quality of our games in new hardware,
100%.
The latest C++ and shader compilers, an excellent suite of CPU and GPU profiling tools, fast iteration times, no gimmicks, lots of RAM, and as modern a CPU and GPU as is reasonable possible certainly helps, depending on the type of game you're making. But we hit the ceiling for visual fidelity versus time, budget, staff requirements, and bigger specs won't solve this. And then he said, and then I guess a bunch of fanboys got mad at him, and he said, "Christ, this hit a nerve. I have no side here. I want all consoles to be amazing and sell well. I'm baffled as to how this arbitrary number continues to be held up on a pedestal when it has no meaning to the quality of the games or the process by which they are made."
That is, man. Like, can we drop the mic and stop the show?
Hey, Z Black Rider saying they're arguing with engineers. I don't know if he's saying they're arguing with you, or are you arguing with Sony and Microsoft engineers?
I don't know. Again, I think they're just taking things out of context. I don't think they understand it. I don't think anyone is being malicious. I think some people are really confused. Like, for example, the whole the chief of Sony comes out and say, "Hey, we need to look at active users instead of just counting consoles, because we don't want to count the dead consoles. We want the consoles that's being supported. We want active users." And 99% of people on Twitter saw active users and thought that meant PSN monthly active users, because it had the phrase active users in it. So they run around saying Sony has this many active users, and that is not the stat that they were talking about at all. They weren't talking about PSN subscribers. You can be an active PSN user from your PC or your smartphone. What they were talking about was the number of people that are purchasing games for the console.
Yeah, real quick, I gotta go to
the. So people constantly confuse things.
Yeah, I gotta pay the bills here. Glorious War with additional $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. This is the best analogies: an American muscle car versus European sports car. One might have less horsepower, but guess which one goes around the circuit faster? Thank you for that super chat, sir.
Hey, that's a good point. I want to use that example because I think we helped the guy understand on Twitter a little better about the whole speed thing. If you look at Mario Kart and use Mario Kart as an example, and Donkey Kong is by far the fastest racer, the original Mario Kart, like most of y'all ain't gonna know nothing about this. So Donkey Kong is by far the fastest racer, and it's not even close. But if you're on a track that has a bunch of turns and curves and very few straightaways, Donkey Kong, even though he's the fastest, he won't be the best one for that course because his acceleration is too slow. And so somebody like Yoshi will be better for that course. And that's the same deal like graphic card features. A graphic card could be really good, like they said, at pixel shaders. And so you may get 4 teraflops increase just from those pixel shaders. But if you aren't using those pixel shaders, none of that stuff is going to be wasted for you. You're going to need more raw processing power to do the computation and the math that you need. Floating point operations is what that's for, to do the math for your own particular algorithms, and you're going to bypass whatever special logic that they have for the pixel shaders. And so those pixel shaders will be wasted in your case because you're not taking advantage of them the same way the speed of Donkey Kong will be wasted on particular tracks. So it's not just higher numbers or faster. It's the skill of the developer. Like how many times have we said this? The skill of the developer and the tools that they have to use. That's what's going to determine the quality of the game.
Yeah, that's actually what that developer that Slow-Mo quoted. Like he's like the most important thing are the tools that we're giving. FC Violet's out here on Twitter saying, so I'm hearing different things. He says, what's the difference between variables and sustain? Apparently 12 teraflops on Series X won't be sustained. Send me the tech dudes or a developer. Yo, FC, we got a guy who's made video games on the show right now. I mean, like,
y'all mixing up the terms. He's that the power.
I think you guys are talking about different things.
Oh my god.
There. Yeah, I think it's a communication thing. I think Optimus. I don't think what you're saying is logic. Is I think anybody who's developed for anything understands what you're trying to say. But I think it's taken out of context with what Digital Foundry is saying. So I think what you're basically saying is that, well, first of all, I don't think any piece of hardware has ever been 100% maxed out. No, there's always something more better that you can do, way you can make a code run more efficiently and things like that. I mean, we do see, it feels maxed out when things don't run well, but that's usually a result of time.
But this goes back to what Code said. He said this in the very beginning. He was like, if this can run 12 teraflops maxed out, it will stay there. They're basically saying this will stay at 12 teraflops, 52 CUs at 1.82 gigahertz. If you can get a game that runs that, the system will consistently output that. But the biggest thing that people keep not thinking about is it's not going to do that for games that don't have to use that much power. If the game wasn't designed to use the power, then the game is not going to do it. The game is going to benefit from other facets, like he said, being the difference in archetype, going from RDNA 1 to RDNA 2, which is going to drastically improve the performance of the game without even breaking a sweat on the new system. So if the game is developed for it and it's going to take full advantage of that 12 teraflops, then FC is completely right. It's going to run it's going to stay right at that actual number that Microsoft set. But guess what? Like he said earlier, no game that we know of to this point has ever maxed out performance on the GPU, and we have hundreds of tens of years of PC to see that doesn't happen. Now console, it could happen later on in the generation. I don't see it in the first couple of years though, but it's two different arguments. I mean, he's right, then depends on how you want to look at the scenario, but as of right now, there's no game that's going to take advantage of 12 teraflops. Maybe Cyberpunk, don't know, but
yeah. So
I think where you're going to see the advantage is in the ray tracing, and I really think because again, when you talk about all that power, if it's not accessible, then developers aren't going to use it. We saw that, and I think that's why we saw this generation. They would just take all that power and just dump it into more pixels, and that's why you saw the PS4 outperform the base Xbox One, and then vice versa when they did their half steps. And I think you'll see the same thing. This upcoming generation, that unused power will probably go towards ray tracing, and it does look like the new Xbox will have an advantage there, whereas the PS5 will have an advantage in load times. And I don't think anybody really knows how all the rest of it even works together, because a lot of it is, like you were saying before, is like lowest common denominator, but we don't know what that is yet, because we know that I/O speeds are both are going to be better, but the PS5s is a lot better, but we don't know where that sweet spot. We don't know if something else is going to bottleneck it before it ever gets there, right?
The funny thing is, games like Counter-Strike, that is like tried and true on PC, can run on a potato, and every graphics card you throw at it maxes out the frame rate at a point where the frame rate gets to a point where it can't even go no higher. So why do people think that just because you throw more power at something is going to make it better? At a certain point, you're at diminishing returns for anything. If the game wasn't designed to run that fast, it's only going to run as fast as it needs to run. The GPU ain't going to make it run faster because it can't run faster.
Yeah, or if it did, it would mess it up, and you would have to put a limiter in.
You have to put a limiter in.
Down. Yeah.
Hey, Code, I got a question for you. Actually, this other guy. Hey, and this guy needs to start.
But y'all act like I'm the only one on the panel, man. It's like 8 people here.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you because you're the one who made the games. I mean, anyone feel free to chime in. I mean, seriously. This PS5.
Be like Forte, just chime in.
Yeah, be like Forte, just chime in. Who just bought a Buccaneers jersey?
Sure did.
Yeah,
How did you know? How did you know?
I think Slobo said it. I think Slobo might have said that.
I think
I said what?
Did you say I was buying a Buccaneers jersey?
Oh yeah. You absolutely are. You probably already got it on.
No, they haven't announced. They haven't officially printed it yet, but I will be buying one.
Yeah. So who is this guy in Lincoln Speaks? I don't know even how to pronounce his name.
Did you see what he said about? He said PS5.
Yeah, well, he got this comment. I guess fixed and variable are synonyms. Look, man, the problem is you don't know what's fixed and what's variable. You are using those terms and you're applying them to the wrong things. You're applying them to things that don't even compete with each other. I don't know why you're doing it, but like you have a severe misunderstanding of how this architecture talk is supposed to go.
Woo! That's why I bring on Optimus Code on the show, to bring sensible conversation and insightful conversation to this, because there's a lot of people that don't understand this, you know. Hell, I don't understand all of it either, you know. That's why I DM you a lot, Optimus. I'm like, hey, what's up with this? Like, what, you know, because I don't know. Like, I've never.
Okay, look here. That dude Z Black Rider, he has the perfect explanation right there in the chat, which is, I mean, I guess he says like the PS is 9.2. It can boost up to 10.2, which is equivalent to saying, I mean, like all of us in here have probably done it on the panel, and OBM, you may be doing it soon. You get your motherboard, you got your chips, and then you want to overclock it because you want it to go faster. Okay, but it's only a safe amount that you can overclock it without getting yourself into trouble. And so you can overclock it too far and it'll run good for a while, but then eventually you're going to mess it up because you're running it at way too high a speed than what it was meant. All they're saying is that the Xbox Series X is meant for that high speed and you can't break it. It will always be able to deliver this 12 teraflops. With the PlayStation 1, and this is not the power, which they said is fixed. They're talking about the teraflops. Okay, the 9.2 is running at the regular clock speed, but you can overclock it up to 10.2. And really, you could go higher, but that's not a safe amount. So we give you the ability to overclock it up to 10.2 if you need to, but in its natural state is going to run at 9, which is the Series X. Its natural state is always 12, but it's not going to use the 12 unless it's being demanded of it. Just turning it on, you don't get 12 teraflops.
Microsoft just giving you the big number up front, where Sony's saying this is where our system's going to run at, and it's like the equivalent of hitting the Silicon lottery. Everybody that works on PC knows it. Every once in a while, you hit the lottery, and your GPU and your CPU will allow you to overclock. It's crazy as possible, but guess what? Sometimes those duds are in there, and you can't even hit them. You can only hit minimum specifications, and that's the difference between console and PC. That's
a great point, but that's very. That's very similar to PC though in terms of overclocking and stuff, like what you guys were just talking about.
The only difference, go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just look at it like for the PlayStation. What they're saying is you can overclock up to 10.2 if you need to.
Okay. The guy,
and it's gonna be running real hot.
I can overclock my CPU right now to 5.1, but guess what? I don't.
That's not a good idea.
I run it at 4.9 because 5.1 is I can do it probably for like an hour, but it gets hot in a mug, and I'm like, nope.
I've actually messed up board to doing that.
Exactly. So I scale that boy back. I think I'm running at 4.7 right now. So
woo, okay, Forte. All right.
On a 8700K, so you know.
He said I just went right around the world to agree with him. What is he? I don't even know what he's talking about.
He don't know what he's talking
he does.
about.
I don't think he knows.
Let him believe what.
Elikis doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm convinced of that.
I mean, no, because it's the difference in somebody that's like genuinely trying to understand versus somebody on trash. I don't think he on trash. I think we maybe was just missing each other in the comments.
I mean, maybe, but he's saying explain what variable frequency means on PlayStation 5 spec sheet.
So the assumption he was saying that the high end was the consistent number. Now he's saying that low end was what he was talking about. Like I said,
it can burst to 10.2, but not for a limited time. It can do a sustained 10.2. You just have to overclock it to get it. So it's not a limited time. It's the whole time.
And that's up to the developer. Developer wants to take advantage of that extra 1.5 teraflops. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So let me what do you think the I guess and we don't know this, I guess, from a performance perspective, because we don't have any benchmarks or any games to really compare these consoles, but at least on paper, like code, what do you think, like on paper, like how, is there a significant gap in terms of power, or is it really insignificant at the end of the day?
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, these are not facts. This is just my opinion, but it's an educated, informed opinion. I think it means absolutely nothing. I'm going to go back to what I told y'all a couple of episodes ago. It's the skill of the developers, the tools that they have to work with, the compilers, and the skill of the dev team. Everything else is a tool for them. It's all paintbrushes. You got 1,000 paintbrushes with 1,000 colors, but if you can't paint, it's not going to do you no good.
Yeah, when I look at these numbers and put them side by side, I think they're both going to get to the same point, but in different ways. When you look at the SSD for the PlayStation, they're taking an elegant approach of how fast they can render things out in the world. Like when it comes to draw distance, the closer you get to things, the faster they'll load in. You know, that stuff will already be spun up in the memory so you can see it as fast as you can. Where Xbox is, since they got a little bit more raw power, they can brute force that. So they're going to get to the same point. They're just getting there different ways. That's why I tell people it's not going to be a huge difference in what you're going to see in these systems. You know, the SSD going to help the system load faster, but Microsoft is going to brute force a lot of the stuff that the SSD that's going to be the shortcomings for their SSD. And anybody that plays on PC now, you already know NVMe is ridiculously fast as it is. So it's not like the Xbox is that much slower. They're just going to make it up on the other end, but they're both gonna be fine. It's not gonna be an issue with either of these systems.
Okay, well, I think that's true. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
Oh no, I'm sorry. What I was going to say, that's the thing people are missing, because it's always this, you know, relative thing where we're going back and forth and saying who's, you know, got a little bit more of an edge here or there. They're both going to be very powerful machines, both in terms of raw power and in I/O speed. Now we know one has advantage in raw power and one has advantage in I/O speed, but overall, I think both of them are actually very balanced. Right. With some different strengths. And I think that's the thing people just got to, you know, come to realize. And then again, I think it goes right back to what you were saying, Optimus. It's about the talent of the developers and those tools. And what I'm curious about, and I hope we hear a little bit more coming out for GDC, or maybe it's already been out there, but you know, what sort of tools are we giving these developers with the engines? Like, how easy is it going to be for them to take advantage of those things like ray tracing? Is that something that, you know, that a smaller team is going to be able to use? Or because if it's not, you know, like, then again, to your point, you're not using any of those flops, right? If it's a small team and you can't, and you're not going to be, you know, if you're not going to be taking, you know, putting any ray tracing in your games, then that whole theoretical thing that Digital Foundry was talking about is completely irrelevant to that developer. So I'm curious how things like machine learning and advanced tools are now going to help developers try to do things better. And I don't know what those, you know, those limitations are.
Yeah, and I think it's unknown for everybody. Not for everybody, because the dev kits have been out for quite a while. So I do like what Cerny said. Like, one of the things that they're doing is they're listening to developers. And I also know, just from, I just know that Microsoft is also listening to developers.
Don't break any rules.
You almost said something.
You almost said something, Code. Don't break NDA. Go ahead, man.
Go ahead and say it, man. Go ahead and say it. It's all good.
No, Microsoft is listening to developers. Sony made a point to say they're listening to developers. I think that's great. They understand that the content creators need to have a voice in the tooling and what's going on in order to make the best content for the platform. And I think both of them have a commitment to not just listen to them at the beginning, but there's a process by which they are constantly taking feedback from the developers to make sure that their systems are easy to develop for. But I do want to say something, and like again, this is my opinion. I don't know that this is true, but I would probably bet like maybe as much as $50 to $100 that it's true. I'm pretty sure that for all intents and purposes, the PlayStation 5 is going to seem like it's better than the Xbox because the PlayStation group so far only cares that the PS5 is the lowest common denominator. So their developers get to build games for the PS5, taking as much advantage of its power as they can. Whereas on the Xbox Series X, it has to still run on the older trash hardware for 2 years. And I think that after those couple of years are up, we will start to see Xbox Series X games that actually take advantage of those 12 teraflops.
But Cole, you're comparing exclusive to exclusive then, because that's really the only place where that's really going to take place is like third-party developers like Ubisoft, Activision, EA. At any point, they can say, "I'm not supporting Xbox One."
Sure, they can, but what's most cost-effective for them?
I mean, so this year, of course, they're going to have, like, say, Madden, for example. Madden,
that's a good example.
EA is definitely going to put Madden on the Xbox One series of systems this year.
That's 2K,
But next year is no guarantee of that.
True, but by next year, we'll have a whole year of PlayStation games targeted only at the PS5.
But they'll still have, like, again, with Madden is still going to be on the PS4. So it's still going to be, it's still targeted to get, well, I guess Madden is not that great because Madden don't change every year. So
right. But I can get the point you making though.
Like, let's say a Ubisoft game, because Ubisoft drops like 4 games a year. So let's say a Ubisoft game is coming out. Watch Dogs Legion. Nah, that's not good. Okay.
No, man, I love Watch Dogs. Don't start no trouble.
No, man. I'm saying that's not good because it's coming out this year.
Hey, Code loves Watch Dogs, but he hasn't even played it yet.
I'm thinking about something that's coming out. A Ubisoft game that's coming out next year.
Just say
coming out next year.
It's not coming out this year.
Say Division 3.
Hey, yeah, right. Division 3, Destiny 3, whatever. Like Division 3, that is guaranteed not to be going to come out on Xbox One and PS4. So there's a cutoff point for publishers that is pretty much the same across the board, whether it's Sony or Microsoft. So really, the whole your games are being held back by, which I agree. We both agreed about this multiple times, but it only applies to the exclusives. It's only going to apply to Grounded, the next Obsidian RPG, Halo Infinite, whatever else the In Exile games that are coming out, which are like 3. All those games, it applies to them, and in comparison to what Sony has. But if we're going to do that, I would say it's more about the ingenuity of the developer than the hardware at that point, because we've seen
100%. Yes,
we've seen what Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica, even you could say Sucker Punch, because if you look back at Infamous Second Son, that game still looks good right now. You look back at Rise with Crytek, that game still looks good right now at 900p. It still looks better than a lot of games that are coming out today. So it's really I think it's more about the developer and how well they can get around those things. But again, we've gone over this multiple times. But I think as far as when people see these games coming out and Digital Foundry goes, let's compare this multi-plat game in March 2021 on the Series X and the PS5, I don't think that's going to be a big issue as far as that game is also coming out on the Xbox One.
That's interesting. Okay, so you heard me say I'll bet $50 to $100. What you got on it?
Oh, I ain't betting a damn thing.
Well, I think there's historical evidence of what you talk about too, Slomo. Because if you think about even the beginning of this gen, you got the tech demos right out the gate, right, to kind of sell the consoles from the first party. But every big game that from a third party that came out, I'd say in the first 2 years, had a 360 in the PS3 version, and you're talking about porting across different architectures, so that was a lot more expensive to do multiplats than I think it will be this time. And you remember there was like Destiny, you had Metal Gear Solid 5 that had a last gen version, Forza 2. Pretty much every game that was good had a version on the 360. I think up until Witcher 3, and that was the first time that we said, okay, now we got to cut off. And so when they talk about 2 years, I don't think that's as controversial as I think a lot of people took it, just because I agree that last gen will hold back game design, and that's obvious because we already heard developers talk about how they're going to be able to do different things. But
OBM, you're fear mongering.
Yeah, not fear-mongering.
Shout out.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that that's going to hold back some game design, but at the same time, those types of projects, those big games that really push the new architecture, the new possibilities, take 3 to 4 years to make anyway. So I'm guessing these developers haven't known about these IO speeds, or at least weren't developing for them, 4 years ago. So you got to expect it's a 1 to 2 year process before you start to see anything more than really pretty games,
So that's the part I'm not sure that that's true. I know that's a common perception among a lot of people, but I fully expect that Sony R&D knew their target specs for the PS5, and they had their teams building towards those specs years ago. This is
you might be right in that. Yeah, because I think the developers for Spider-Man, Insomniac, they already talked about that in Horizon Zero Dawn as well. But we don't know when those are going to be out, though. Those could be still 2 years away as well.
That's true. Yeah.
I just want to say shout out to the best first-person modern military came out for this generation, which was Battlefield 4. That was cross generation, and I still think there's no first-person shooter that's modern military that's better than it. Call of Duty can kiss it because Battlefield 4 was amazing.
Wow,
it's still amazing to this day.
Wasn't that the one that was broken that long?
Sure was.
That
and guess
was
what?
broken.
It was broken, and it was still a better game.
It was immediately disqualified in my book, as well as many people's books, when you can't play that long.
That was the last good Battlefield, in my opinion.
That was the Battlefield, right, man? That Battlefield, especially if you go back and play it right now. If you go play that Battlefield right now, it's perfect. It's like
and Forte want all the smoke tonight, even when
sure do. I want all the smoke.
Yeah. Well, and just jumping off that, I think the best game in the first 2 years that was a next gen game was Bloodborne, and I bet you that thing could have been.
I give you that.
That game probably could have worked on the 360 and PS3 with lower textures. I didn't see anything game design out on that was vastly different.
Are you trying to say it could have worked on the Switch?
Now, you know what? You got a point. You might have a point there. Well, we got Witcher 3 working on the Switch.
We got Witcher 3 working on the Switch. So
it just goes back to Otis, what he said earlier. It just comes down to the talent of the devs, right? And so I think we get caught up in this at this time in the gen because that's it's Plastic Wars, and
that's what we do.
I'm older. Yeah, I'm a little bit older now, so I don't care as much.
Enrique's been disqualified from Plastic Wars because he plays on the tower now.
Yeah.
What's that?
You heard me.
I didn't hear what you said. What'd you say?
You guys are Plastic Warring at the beginning.
I said he's been excluded from Plastic Wars because he plays on towers now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a gaming laptop.
I became, I wanted to be that 1%. Like,
did anybody hear what he said on a live stream not too long ago, where he was like, you know what? He said, I'm not going to get an Xbox Series X for me, but I'm going to probably end up getting one because my kids probably going to want it. I was like, oh, here comes the damage control.
Hey, you know what? If the kid, look, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
I specifically recall Forte saying he wasn't getting one as well. Like
I know.
Months ago.
And what did I say? After December 12th, 2019, I said, guess what? I take it all back.
All I'm saying is that Forte, you can't. reserve the right for yourself to change your mind, and Enrique can't reserve the right for himself to change his mind at some point.
Woo! Get him, Slow-Mo. Get him.
I mean, like, you gotta be consistent, my man. You gotta be consistent. That's all I'm saying.
You tell me.
You change your mind, but he can't change his mind.
Wait a minute. Oh, so Slow-Mo,
Forte, I'm with you, but he got a good point there, man.
He does have a good point. That's why Slow-Mo that's why he's the elder statesman. I give him that. He's the only one that can call me on my BS. He knows. And that's true. That's absolutely true. So you know what, Slow-Mo, you right. Let's ask Enrique right now. Enrique,
here we go.
With all of this news that Xbox is giving you, and all of the forward thinking they're doing with their new platform, and all of the great things that they're doing to get gamers first, are you going to get the next Xbox when it releases this holiday season?
No.
What?
Not
for my. No, I'm not. I'm not going. I don't know.
No, it's not. You can't say for yourself, because if it is up in your household,
no. Let me tell you. Whoa, wait a minute. No. Listen.
If it is listen.
No.
Wait. Hold on. Wait.
Now, Enrique. A sale is a sale.
A sale is a sale.
I'm not buying. I don't have intentions of buying the console for myself.
No,
right?
Stop saying.
Wait. Let me finish. If my 11-year-old and my 6-year-old are gamers now, they game, right? They game on the PlayStation 4 Pro. They game on the Xbox One X. I was gonna sell my Xbox One X. My wife's like, no, give it to the kids, and the kids will love it. They love Game Pass has been Game Pass for my kids. My kids, what's on Game Pass now? What can we download? They love it. Right.
And I try to tell Mooch, as a parent, Game Pass is invaluable.
Yes. Now my 11-year-old, he knows about the PlayStation 5. He knows about the Xbox Series X, and he wants both. And buy
2 PlayStations now?
No, I'm not gonna buy 2 PlayStations. No, I could do that.
I am.
So this isn't so basically what you're saying is that this PlayStation that your kid wants isn't going to be for them, but you're going to buy one.
No, they're actually more, believe it or not, they're more interested in the Switch, PC, and the Xbox right now. Like they don't really mess with the play. He wants a PlayStation 5 because his friends have a PlayStation 4.
And you also said the reason you're not buying an Xbox because you could play all those same games on your PC. Plus, they're going to support the Xbox One X for at least 2 more years. So why would you go out and buy a new Xbox if you don't have to, and your kids can still play on the one they have?
Because if they want it, I'm not going to be an asshole dad. My kids get good grades. They work hard.
Right.
You know,
I'm with him.
Why am I wait.
Yeah, that makes Forte, a lot of sense to me.
Forte, Forte, maybe you don't like buying your kids stuff, but that's not me, man. Like my kid.
Hold on. My kid. Wait. Hold on. I have a PlayStation in this house. I have 2 Xbox One X's in this house. One is in the living room right now. That the one person when you always see someone online playing Mortal Kombat is my daughter. So that's her playing on another Xbox.
Okay, well that's Forte. That is awesome.
I got 3 Nintendo Switches in my house. One
that
for
is
me.
Good for you, Forte.
So don't try to come at me. Don't try to come at me and say that just because you don't want to buy stuff for your kids.
Forte. Why are you questioning?
Listen,
Forte. Why are you questioning what I want to do for my kids, man? Why are you pocket watching?
Because it ain't for your kids.
Why are you pocket watching?
Because I'm taking receipts on all this.
No, you're not. Forte.
My kids want one.
Stop the pocket watching and the pot stirring, man. Look, if my
Can
kids
I ask a question, y'all?
Yeah.
Please ask.
EJ, how do you put up with them each week, man?
Hey, I'm just letting them ride, man.
Ooh, boy, it's rough in these podcast streets.
And then Slow-Mo up here. I'm up here defending Slow-Mo, and Slow-Mo coming at me.
Hey, I am
always just trying to tell the truth.
That's thank you, Cole. That's
Let me tell you,
slow-mo is paragon of truth here.
Slow-mo
Slow-mo can get away with it. Slow-mo can get away with it. Every once in a while, he makes a misstep and he has to apologize to all of Twitter. It doesn't happen that often. It doesn't happen that often, but he does have to do it every once in a while.
I respect that, man. Ain't nothing wrong with admitting when you're wrong.
With that. Guess what? I was wrong about the Xbox. I said I didn't want one, but guess what? I'm gonna buy one now. And guess what? Enrique gonna do the same thing. Even if he tries to hide it behind the fact that he said he buying it for his kids, he gonna still be on that system. When you log on Xbox and you see that man playing with Xbox controllers, you already know he playing it for himself, and those kids was just a second thought.
But why?
Actually, you know what? Actually, Forte, that's actually not true, man. Because look, like I said, man, all jokes aside, like if my kids want the console, I'm gonna get it for them because I want to foster that gaming experience for them. I'm not gonna say no. You know, I'm gonna get it, but me personally, like if there were no kids here, I'm not gonna buy it.
He found
it's not a loophole.
Ryan in the chat saying y'all being cooped up in the house is getting to y'all, and that's just
I know.
I agree. I agree with that.
By next week, we're all going to be looking in the
you know what?
Red Rum.
You know what? This is just me. This is just me being
Nicholson in The Shining.
This is just me being petty in the podcast. So I'll admit that I'm being real petty right now. But you know what, Enrique? You good. I mean, you can buy whatever you want for your family. I don't want to take any of that joy away from
you. Try to take the joy away from my kids, man.
Guess what? I'm gonna make sure the day that GameStop starts taking pre-orders on that new Series X, I'm gonna let you know right along with Boom, because Boom is the first person I'm gonna DM. I'm gonna DM you next. I'm gonna DM all y'all. And guess what, Enrique? I guarantee you, within that first calendar day, he gonna put a picture of a receipt up on the screen saying, "Got my Series X."
So look, man, I want to comment on that real quick. Y'all haven't said it explicitly, but there's an undertone going through this conversation.
What's that?
For a lot of people, myself not included, but for a lot of people, purchasing video game hardware and software is the result of a logical conclusion and decision making. I buy games and consoles because that's what I do. It is my hobby of choice, and I always support the next evolution in the art form. And I don't care. Like, of course, I have a 1080 Ti right now. Well, my daughter, but she took it because we trying to build. We waiting for the 3080. I told her I might sell it to her, so she want to try it out early. Since I'm never hardly on it, I'm like, okay, sure. But the point is, we got high-powered PCs, multiple Xboxes, multiple Switches, multiple PlayStations. It's not a question of why would you buy this if I have a PC? Because I want to. And this is what I do with my money. I enjoy it. I like the next generation. I want to experience all of the stuff, and I don't need to justify my spending habits to anyone. I am a gamer. I've been doing this for over 30 years. It's just what I do. Although I have been disappointed with hardware before, and I may purchase it and I may regret the purchase. Like that certainly has happened to me before.
You must have bought an Atari Jaguar.
You must have bought
I have it right now. It's upstairs right now.
It's almost funny.
But anyway, so that's the thing.
You just watched Rocky, didn't you?
Always logical reasons why. It's just this is what I do.
Hey man, look,
that makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead, E. My bad.
No, I'm saying no. I'm with Cole. Like sometimes you just want to look over and see that it's there because damn it, it's there. Yeah, I'm a gamer.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep. And
sometimes just there's no better feeling than like heading out to the store or Amazon, whatever you do, and getting that new console box, and breaking it open and getting hooked up and that UI flying. That's just
look, man. My wife. I walked in the house without my PS4 the day it launched. I walked in the house without my PS5, my PS4. My wife looked at me, was like, "Didn't the PlayStation come out today?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." She was like, "Why ain't you come home with it?" I was like, well, I already got my Xbox paid off. I'm trying to be responsible with the money. My wife looked at me. She's like, "Do you want it?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Then take your butt back to the store and go get it." Once my wife confirmed it to me, I went to the store and I had that PS4 so fast. I was like, "Oh, I got my Xbox coming next week. I got my PS4 now. I can play some of these PlayStation games right now." And I was in Heaven.
When the CFO and the family sign off, you're like, I got to go.
No, I got
Talk
to go.
about it.
Got to go, and that's
Talk
why.
about it.
And that's the biggest thing I think. Like it's just being making fun of, man. Enrique gonna do what he need to do. I just think he gonna end up with the system because I think he does a podcast and he gonna want to talk about all this stuff. And there's no better way to talk about it if you don't own the system. So I think
I will say, Enrique, if your kids are on the brink, Game Pass on console is a lot better than PC right now.
Oh, absolutely,
That's
absolutely,
true.
it is. Yeah,
It's way better.
They
You
get
got
more
way
games.
Way more games.
games. And more of the mainstream like AAA third-party games that show up on Game Pass. A lot of times they only show up on the console side and not the PC side. I think it's due to sometimes there are exclusive deals, like licensing issues, exclusive deals that these companies have with the Epic Game Store or wherever else. And then also, if you just look at the Microsoft Store in general, like when games show up in Game Pass, it's because they're in the Microsoft Store. If the game isn't in the Microsoft Store, it's not going to show up on PC Game Pass, like the PC version of the Microsoft Store. If it's not in there, it's not showing up. So, yeah, I mean, like, wouldn't surprise me at all if Control comes out eventually on Game Pass and it's not on PC Game Pass. It's on just console Game Pass.
Oh, so what you're saying is he'll have an Xbox One X.
Oh boy,
and it'd be playing at a weaker frame rate and inferior graphic. He's gonna be like, if I want to play this on Game Pass, I gotta get a better system. Is that what you're saying, Slow Mo? Is that what you're saying?
Might have to. Hey, look, like don't you guys remember last year when After Party came out, like last August?
I do remember.
After Party launched in Game Pass, but only in Game Pass console. I was a little pissed about that because I wanted to play it, not August, because I didn't have my PC then. I didn't build my PC at that point. I think it's had been October, November. Somewhere in there. So when After Party came out, I was like, yo, I can't wait to play this on my PC. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's only in Game Pass for console. And I had then it had issues. It had frame rate issues on the Xbox One X. I was like, this is kind of a crappy experience. And not to mention the game wasn't as good as their previous game, Oxenfree. But I'm not
definitely not.
So
I could not figure out why that game had performance issues.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Like you look at that game, it's running the Unity engine.
Yeah,
and it was frame rate every time the camera would pan like from one like from a high level to a low level, or every time you got in that little speeder boat that the cab driver would take you.
No spoilers, man.
I'm
just playing on this one. I'm just playing.
You can't play. Optimus said you can't talk about no games that I ain't played, which is about 90% of them.
Right.
I'm just playing.
That happened, the frame rate would drop to like under 20 frames per second.
I was like, what is going on?
It was really frustrating. I'm like, and every time it happened, I was like, man, I can't have been playing this on my PC.
It's slow mo. They still haven't fixed it. It's still like that.
You serious?
Yeah.
All this. Look, I'm not surprised because I like Night School Studio, but it's like 12 dudes.
Right.
Low priority.
Yeah, like it's and they made, I think, the big mistake of putting this simultaneous launch on every single platform in existence, not named Stadia. So I don't know how 12 guys got that done, but I'm not surprised the game was buggy as all hell.
Did you finish it on console?
I did finish it. I don't think it's good as Oxenfree. Oxenfree has a way better story, way better characters. It's just overall a better game.
And you can play it on PC Game Pass.
Yeah, and you can play that one on PC Game Pass. Yeah,
Oxenfree had better pacing. It had like I don't know. It's just I
don't know what I feel like. I said like maybe Cole can speak to someone a developer that's small trying to make. They put the game on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch. You got it on 4 different platforms. Whereas with Oxenfree, it came out initially just on PC. Then it came out on consoles like 6 to 8 months later.
Yeah.
Then eventually came out on Switch.
Xbox first, and then it went to PlayStation, I think. And then
so there you go. They even staggered the release of it on consoles before they to go from that to we're just going to drop it on everything day one. Like I'm not surprised they had all these issues.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with them, so I don't know what their story is.
Yeah, Night School Studio. I mean, they're pretty cool. They came from Telltale, their former Telltale developer.
Okay.
Yeah, so like that's why they kind of have that very narrative-driven style of gameplay because that's what they originally did. Those guys, the founders of it, they worked on the first season of The Walking Dead, so they got like some street cred out there as far as telling stories.
Yeah, talented group, man. Like I
played Oxenfree. I beat it. Okay. I didn't like it, but
okay. So you ain't gonna like After Party.
Yeah, you probably
played After Party.
Yeah,
I mean, Oxenfree was cool. The kids liked it. It was just like none of the choices is what I wanted to do. Like that's not what I would do here. Like I'm supposed to be role playing as like a teenager. It's like, oh my god, that was too long ago. I don't know what the teenage me would have done. So I wouldn't.
Okay, so Cole didn't like it because he's too old to relate. He's
old, yeah, man. I couldn't relate to these kids, man. But yeah, everybody in the house loved it, so I ain't tripping. Yeah, it was money well spent.
I don't know, but then again, you might like After Party because it's more like their comedy like game.
Hey, where the party at?
Forte wants to smoke, boy.
Why you say that?
Because you just chiming in with colorful commentary and you just ready.
Oh man, today's one of those that I'm gonna tell you, man. I've been waiting for all look. This is Forte Unleashed now. I've been waiting. I've been legit waiting for all of this stuff about specs and everything to come out because I refuse to make videos on haphazard people's predictions on what's going to happen. So I literally am so happy that I can literally just say, look, man, this is how it's going to be. Cry if you want to cry. Do whatever the heck you want to do. The fact of the matter is everything's going to be great. Gaming's great. Gaming's going to be fun. If you are feeling bad about your situation, go cry in a towel. It's pretty. I'm just happy now that this is over. Go cry in a towel.
That's what's kind of nuts about it. It's like, man, if there was ever a time in anybody's lives to get a little bit of perspective, we're all like quarantined out here. And
right. You should be happy that you get news instead of like PlayStation.
Hey, y'all, can we go back in the chat and respond to something, Ellen?
Yeah. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Then we got to wrap it up because it's
okay.
I was gonna say Enrique doing a quarantine cast, man. It's going.
This is the 4-hour podcast. 6-hour podcast.
Look, man, ain't nobody got to go to work.
Ain't nobody got to go to work
tomorrow.
I'm working tomorrow. I'm working from home, but I'm working.
Yeah, Forte, I was gonna ask you what they doing with that?
They got Forte's got to buy his own hand sanitizer apparently.
Look, man, we ain't gonna talk about how my disappointment level and what's going on there.
Forte, that's where you should reach out to a certain publication and give your insight.
Nah, man, I'm good.
Anonymous source.
Nah, man, it's terrible out here though.
Yeah, go ahead, Optimus.
Well, dude just said, he didn't say, he said it a while ago, I guess. And I'm pretty sure he's referring to me. You just said no one is going to max the consoles in the first few years. Halo Infinite started its dev like 5 years ago. How could the game be made with SSX specs in mind? That's actually real easy to answer. There's this thing called the 2080 Ti, which no console will ever be as fast as it. So you can develop on the PC targeting a certain targeting a certain amount of graphical power and finesse, and you can use the 1080 Ti or the 2080 Ti, probably the 1080 Ti, as your benchmark, and you can get your tools together. You can start developing tools. They're going to have the inside track, so they probably could have had some prototype boards way earlier, way sooner than what's going to be publicly available, so that their developers can start developing like a long time ago. And even if they did do that, it wouldn't matter because it still takes years and years with the hardware. Right now, what we will see at the beginning of the generation is the potential of the hardware. Towards the middle and the end of the generation, you will see them start to maximize the hardware, which will be far beyond what you showed at the beginning when it was showing the potential. And this happens all the time. This is not normal. This is not new. It's not like a big mystery. It's very commonplace. The PC is the target always that you use for early development when you're not sure of what your specs are going to be.
Man, that's what I'm talking about, man. Preach
code. And
Forte it's just hyped up.
Forte is in his. Yeah, he's
Forte. He's got another 3 hours in him.
No, as soon as I'm done editing this video, I'm gonna pass the hell out.
Forte like Ted
Forte might be
Riddles today.
sleep high right now.
Sleep
Look,
high.
man, this is
Forte sleep giddy.
Nah, man.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
No, man. Well, y'all just look, man. I just been look. I told Luca this the other day. I was talking to her on Xbox, and I said, man, I'm just tired of the same conversation. This is before Sony announced what they were doing. I was like, I'm so tired of the same conversation. And I am really happy that this conversation can progress to something that's more important, like games. That's what I'm looking. That's what I'm happy about. We don't have to talk, dude. The specs are out there. I already set myself to know that we're gonna probably talk about specs for at least the next couple of weeks, maybe the next month. But at least I know there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is shining on me as bright as possible, and it has a halo over the top of his head. That is what I am looking for, and it has ray tracing. And that's what I'm excited for, and I can't wait to get to that point. But at least I know it's there. Before, I didn't know what was going to happen.
There was light at the end of the tunnel now.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel now, bro. And it's just like you said, you crunched to get to the end. I felt like I crunched all of these topics. I felt like I was crunching topics of the same ilk for the last 2 months. Now I'm happy to move on with my life. Thank you. Thank you, Xbox. Thank you, PlayStation, for doing this all in the same calendar week. I appreciate you.
Now we're going to speculate on PC GPUs now. That's going to be next.
No, we're not speculating on that because whatever you get, my GPU is still going to be good enough. I'm just getting it just to get it at that point.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm excited for this 3080. I wish they come on, but I think the coronavirus stuff may hold it up.
Oh, speaking of which,
I'm not trying to extend this way too further, but I actually saw a poll by Red Gaming Tech when he asked about NVIDIA's next the Ampere line. Do you guys think that they're going to be priced at the same as what the RTX line was, or higher or lower due to AMD's increased competition?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what Big Navi does. Do we know anything about the Big Navi yet?
No, nothing yet, man.
Nothing beyond the fact that it blows away a 2080 Ti, but that's last generation for NVIDIA. So if that's all you got, if I'm NVIDIA, I'm like, well, you ain't really competing with me this year. So I'm going to go ahead and keep pricing my stuff the way I'm pricing it, which is not what I want to see. I want to see them actually challenge.
What, Slow-Mo, you don't want to pay $1,400 for a GPU?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's basically where I'm at.
I don't blame you.
If it comes down to it,
he said, "I don't care."
Cone's like, "I don't care."
How much is it? $1,400. Guess what? I'm not gonna pay $1,400 for mine anyways. My 1080
you gonna trade yours in, right?
Yeah, but I still got to pay that difference though. That
difference. So look, that's why I'm like, if I feel like upgrading this year, which I haven't decided yet, I might just go the 3070 route, which would be like $500-$600.
No, go 3080.
Yeah, but that's still a little bit more than what I want to pay. Because what I'm going to do is take my current 2070 Super, sell that on eBay, take the money, and then now I'm just using the difference of that.
2070?
I paid. It was on sale. I paid $430 for it.
So that's a good price.
So you could probably still get $350. You might still get close to $400 if that was on sale. That's the thing that people don't realize about GPUs, man. I was still able to.
Wait. If the 3070 was on sale, it would be $400. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's saying if you got it for $400 on sale, you might be able to get it now as a good value for it on eBay.
For $400, yeah. Because look, when I bought my when I went from my 980 Ti to my 1080 Ti, I literally I sold it for $100 less than I paid market value for it 2 years later. Because GPUs, Because GPUs, especially high-end, it's just like systems. Always try to get the highest end one you can get because the value of that stays pretty high. Just
hey Forte, real quick,
he's
got to drop out. We'll give him a big shout out.
We need to all drop out.
Yeah, man.
12 in the morning.
I love you guys. Don't get me wrong, but I gotta roll.
He's like, I gotta get you bed.
All right, close the show down, man.
We gotta go.
We need to can have this conversation offline.
This is like the quarantine podcast.
That's what I said, man.
That's what you just said.
Quarantine podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey guys, thank you.
Hey, you should rename it that. Rename it that.
Oh my! I probably should for temporarily.
Quarantine cast.
Quarantine cast.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna start doing that. The quarantine cast. I'm gonna start doing that.
Literally do it. Yeah. That should be episode 1 next week.
Quarantine cast. Yeah, tune in. All right, guys. Hey, everyone in the live chat, thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with us. Big shout out to our earlier guest, game developer David Jaffe, who hung out with us for about an hour. Thank you, Jaffe, for coming on, hanging out with us. And big shout out
that was 84 years ago.
That was like 84 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
And then you downgraded to me.
Yeah. Big shout out to OBM, One Bad Mother, who I've known since the early days of the OG Xbox, and of course Optimus Code. Thank you again, sir, for hopping on and enlightening us with your insight into this new console hardware. I gotta get you back on, Code, to talk about ray tracing, because I'm interested about the approaches with ray tracing of these consoles. So yeah, guys, thank you guys for hanging out with us for like 3 hours. We appreciate it. We'll catch you guys soon. Yeah, so great show. Stay safe. Buy toilet paper. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week. We're out.
Bye.
Peace.